Well, hello and welcome into Off the Bench. New week, ready to rip, ready to go. The Bengals play this week. After UC plays later on this week. We had a big win from FCC. We'll be talking to Sam Wade from the Flying Lion podcast at 10:30 today, so be sure to tune into that as they finally got over the hump of beating their rival, the Columbus Crew. Sorry, I'm all over the place to start today's show. It's the snow. It's the snow that's bothering me here. Sam Wade will be on later today at 10:30. Talk about their series win over the Columbus Crew. They take on Lionel Messi in 2 weeks here in the next round of the MLS Cup. Reed Mouse, Stone Shield, Stone. It's cold in here in this studio. It's we talk about this quite frequently. I know previous people that have been on Off the Bench talk about it. When it gets cold, this studio is not very well climate controlled. I think it's about 65 degrees, so it's really not that bad, but it is actively getting colder. Does the cold bother you, Stone?
You know, it's funny. As I get older, I'm obviously not old, but as the years go on, is probably a better way to put it. It annoys me a little bit more. I would like to have, the summer be extended a little bit. I think, I don't love it when it's super hot, but when it's like in the 90s and I think about complaining about it, I go, you know what? I would kill for this when it's in the 30s, and that's kind of how I feel right now. You and I were talking. The first couple of snows is nice. Obviously, we're not in school anymore, so we don't have the excitement of a snow day. My mom is a teacher, though, so she still kind of brings that same energy. But, yeah, I'm much more a spring-summer guy. But once all the Christmas lights go up, that'll be really nice. I know you put yours up over the weekend, so that's certainly cool. But, yeah, as I get a little bit older, I'm kind of over the snow, but the first couple are nice. Do you consider this the first snow?
Sure, it's snowing.
Yeah? Okay, technically, yes.
Sure, it's snowing.
Yeah.
There's snow on our cars and stuff like that. Had to get off the brush and wipe the cars off. So yeah, this counts as a snow. I don't think we'll see snow for quite a bit time after this.
Right.
It's supposed to be get up to the mid 60s once again here later on in the week. But yeah, I consider this the first snow. But as you mentioned, the first significant snowfall where there's like 2-3 inches of snow and it sits down there and you kind of bundle up at home and all that. That's a lot of fun for about a day, and then you're like, all right, I'm tired of the snow, because then it gets really, really, really ugly. It's funny you mentioned not being in school anymore. Mm-hmm. I have a group chat with my close friends, as we all do, and about 3 people of the nine-person group chat are teachers. So anytime it snows, super excited. Come on, snow, snow, snow. We want all the snow in the world. We don't want to go to work. And then I have 2 friends that work in landscaping professionally, and both of them absolutely lament the snow. So it's a really fun juxtaposition anytime it snows, because we got half the chat going like, oh, I want snow, I want snow. We got half the chat like MFing them like, if it snows, I'm going to die. I'm with you too. When it gets 90 degrees, I can take 90 degrees over this weather any day of the week.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. Yeah, I'll take borderline 100 degrees over this weather. I really mean that, because I'd rather be able to go outside. People that say like, I'll take 30 degrees over 90 degrees. When it's 30 degrees, you just stay inside. You don't do anything. The activities that you can do are very limited. What do you do? Go bowling? You can't go out. You can't golf. You can't go to the pool. You can't do anything. So I like the 90 degrees because it opens up your abilities to do more things. So that's my take on the weather, and that's why you come here to Off the Bench on a Monday to hear about the weather. We mentioned we're going to have Sam Wade on here later on in the show. There's one thing that kind of circulated last week that I've talked about weeks ago. It feels like months ago. It probably was months ago when I was down bad as a Bengals fan, and I was like, strip it down to the studs. Trade Joe Burrow. I'm tired of this. I don't know where we're going. It feels like a rudderless ship. And then I backed off. We won a game, beat the Steelers, and I felt back, and I was back on board. And then, of course, we have the 2 tragic losses. And I don't know how you felt watching that Steelers game last night, Stone. But after we beat the Steelers the first time, I said, there's a good chance when we play them on November 16th that it is to take first place in the AFC North. And sure enough, the Steelers did exactly what I expected them to do over the next 3 games. They'll be 5-4, and if we would have just beaten the Jets or beaten the Bears, we would have been playing this Sunday for first place in the AFC North. Of course, that didn't happen. The Bengals are 3-6, and more so than anything, after the fallout from the trades last week, more so the New York Jets, the team that just beat us, acquiring 3 first-round picks over the next 2 years, now having 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years, some rumors started to swirl. You started hearing some, and there was some scuttlebutt, and there's no legs to it at all. But it does make a lot of sense on paper, which is the Jets are loading up all these picks. They're going to go make a run at a quarterback. And who's the biggest name quarterback that is not available, but the closest to being able to acquire? And, of course, it's our very own Joe Burrow, because things right now in Cincinnati aren't going well. You wouldn't be able to get a Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills, because things, even though they just lost to the Miami Dolphins yesterday, things are going pretty well for them. Things go well for the Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Things are going well for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The only place that's not going well for the elite quarterbacks is here in Cincinnati. Part of the reason is because Joe Burrow's never out on the field. And I just wanted to bring this point up again. I don't want to trade Joe Burrow. Months ago, I said I did. I don't want to trade Joe Burrow, because the idea of trading away an elite talent, we've already seen elite talents walk out of this room, and I know how far ahead of the 8 ball you are when you have that elite quarterback. So you cannot give them up. You hold them on to dear life, and you just hope that you pan out and it works out the way you expect it to do, which is winning several division titles, competing for Super Bowls, which we haven't done in the past few years. I do not want to trade Joe Burrow. I am just sitting here talking to Stone, who's a Bengals fan, talking to my own psyche as a Bengals fan, talking to you guys that are Bengals fans, just preparing you that there will be some noise this offseason. More noise, more legitimate chatter. It'll feel a bit valid at certain points than we've ever had to deal with before when it comes to trading Joe Burrow. And really, the catalyst of it all, because there will be noise. Oh, man. The Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay need to have an heir to Matt Stafford's crown. The New York Jets have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years. What about the Minnesota Vikings? They have a really good team, and it doesn't look like J.J. McCarthy is all that. All the noise that there will be noise, because it's not working here with Joe Burrow, and it feels like there's no direction of the team. And it's a reminder that the only catalyst that there needs to be to potentially end this marriage between the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow is for him to come out and say, yeah, I might want to be moved. It doesn't even have to be a legitimate, I want to be traded. It can just be someone asks him a question, would you ever want to be out of Cincinnati? He goes, I'm open to playing football wherever. Something along those lines, and the rumors start swirling, much like the flurries of snow outside. And I want to bring that up, not as some heartache, not as some terrible Debbie Downer to begin a week of shows here on Off the Bench. I'm bringing it because it's an uncomfortable conversation that we have to have, that if these rumors start to swirl, we've got to start thinking as fans, well, what do we want to happen? If Joe Burrow is going to be traded, and like I said, all it takes is the catalyst of him going, I want out of here, and then we're going to have to deal him. I don't know if they will, but it seems likely that you would, is what do you want in return if they have to get rid of Joe Burrow? Because I'll tell you right now, if that's the case, if that's the route that we're going down of trading Joe Burrow, there's a lot worse trades than, taking all of the Jets' 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years to where the Bengals have loaded up on 7. Even the Bengals can't mess that up. There's a lot worse routes than that. Stone, as we do our little pre-show meeting here every single day, and I start talking this, there is nothing, me and Stone get along famously behind the scenes here. There is nothing he hates more than when I bring up the prospect of trading away Joe Burrow. But that's the uncomfortable conversation that you have to have. Because there's going to be times where they're going to be saying, there's going to be news articles this offseason. There's going to be national pundits talking about the validity of the Bengals needing a new direction and the New York Jets or the Los Angeles Rams or the Chicago Bears or the Minnesota Vikings or whoever you want needing a quarterback of Joe Burrow's talents, because everyone in the league, sans 3 teams, would love to have him, would adore to have him. And Stone, as someone who doesn't want to have this conversation,
yeah,
as someone who rightfully so thinks this conversation is a bit a fugazi, like not real. I'm trying to wedge a conversation that isn't happening. I'm just telling you that I think it's going to happen. If you had to get rid of Joe Burrow, what would make you comfortable in that situation? Is there anything that would make you comfortable in getting rid of Joe?
There's nothing that would make me feel comfortable about doing that. I will say, we had this, what it was, a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago maybe. You handled it today a lot better than you did back then. And you were basically like, you know what? There's a chance that we're having these conversations. I totally agree. Right, because you're on a team that is incompetent, and he could potentially become available. This isn't like talking about trading Mahomes or Allen. There's a little more merit here when we're talking about Joe Burrow. But there's nothing, absolutely nothing. I don't care how many first-round picks. No world am I moving off of Joe Burrow. Now, I hope whenever Joe Burrow takes the podium, whether it be during the regular season or at the conclusion of the regular season, if he does not come back and play football for this team this year, somebody that covers the Bengals, that is on the beat, just says, hey, you know what? There's already people talking. There's going to be people that continue to talk about you potentially not being happy here. Where are you at with potentially playing for a different team here in the coming years? And I'm very interested to hear what he would say, because obviously he would not come out and say, oh, yeah, I want out, absolutely. But kind of to your point, if he was like, well, I'll play wherever. I'm open to – I can't control next year or the years after that. I'm under contract for right now, but I hope to play for a long time. Like, if he just leaves it a little bit open-ended, then there's going to be a lot of people that have that conversation and talk about it. But, yes, what you said is exactly true. There's nothing more that I hate than talking about this, because obviously the defense is a mess, and who knows how long it'll take for them to fix it, if they will ever fix it. But if you get rid of the quarterback, then you have to get rid of Jamar as well, and then it's like, well, you probably got to get rid of T. Then you're literally starting over. And with an offense that is this good, I don't think you need to completely restart. You need to completely restart on defense, but not from a whole organizational standpoint. So it's uncomfortable. I don't like talking about it. People will, if the Bengals continue to lose, they will talk about this. And look, if I'm a different team in the NFL, if I'm the Jets, heck yeah, I'll throw you 5 first-round picks. You want more than that? Maybe I'll offer that, right? I mean, this is an all-time quarterback here in Joe Burrow. So there are, if you're not the Bills, the Chiefs, the Chargers, a handful of teams, you should be throwing everything at Cincinnati saying, we want him. We will give you whatever you want. But I don't think there is a price where Cincinnati goes, oh, yeah, we'll take that. I just think he's too good of a player. He could potentially be one of the best players to ever play this game. That's not hyperbolic. That's not me being a Cincinnati Bengals fan. That's just facts. And unfortunately, he can't stay healthy, which is kind of the curveball in this whole situation. But look, you said Schefter brought it up, and if the Bengals continue to lose, more people will bring it up because the interest level is just so high if you're another team because he's such a good player.
Yeah, where this conversation stems from, I think it's on Get Up, ESPN's Get Up. Mike Greenberg, a noted Jets fan, obviously, posed the question to Adam Schefter, and Adam Schefter didn't draw it down. He said there's a non-zero chance, I guess, is the point that I'm saying here. In years past, if we would have said, what are the chances that Joe Burrow gets traded? It was 0, a definitive 0. I'm telling you right now that this offseason, there's a non-zero chance that we have to move off of Joe Burrow because either something he said or we get a king's ransom for our quarterback. And I just wanted to throw it out there. I'm reading the chat. I know you guys hate this topic, and I hate it too. Like I'm not doing this to be ahead of the curve or anything. I'm just telling you that this is an uncomfortable conversation that might come up. And there's nuance to this entire conversation. It is, okay, how does it start? Does it start with, as I mentioned, as Stone mentioned, a reporter asked Joe Burrow a question that he doesn't definitively dignify, where he goes, hey, how happy are you with your play in Cincinnati? Or how happy are you with your situation in Cincinnati? And he says something along the lines of, I just want to compete for a championship. Not, I'm committed to playing here for the Cincinnati Bengals and we're here to bring a title to this town. Something like that, open-ended to where, all right, now the rumors start flying. Okay, if he outwardly says, I want to be traded, how do the Bengals respond to that? I mean, we've seen this situation before with Carson Palmer, franchise quarterback, one of the best in the league, that wants out. And I think we can all agree, looking back at it, Bengals probably didn't handle it the best. And then what happens, because I think we all know that if A, B happens, then the C thing that happens is Jamar Chase is going to want out as well. Because there would be a lot of noise with him. He's not going to be happy being a part of the rebuild here in Cincinnati. There's a lot of nuance here. I'm just getting you guys ahead of whatever happens this offseason, 99% chance that Joe Burrow is playing quarterback for this team next year. I'm just telling you that there is a non-zero chance that there's a non-zero chance, A, that we trade him, and there's a very high chance that there's a lot of chatter about what happens or what the direction of this organization is going forward. Because as Stone put, the defense right now is in disarray. The entire organization, for the great portion of, is in disarray. The director of player personnel is getting more heat than he's ever had. The coach is getting as much heat as he had back in 2020, where his career record was 3-30 or whatever it was. The new DC is giving up 27 points plus per game. The worst. The formerly historically bad, the now hilariously bad defense. And on top of that, the quarterback is probably going to miss an entire season due to being injured once again. And there is a point of, is there going to be diminishing returns with Joe Burrow if he continues to miss seasons? Because this offseason, you could probably get 5 first-round picks for him. You can probably pull in the entire Jets haul for the next 2 years that they just got this trade deadline. What happens if he comes out next year and in game 2 tears some new injury and he misses an entire year? Now those 5 draft picks, people would still want them, but it's going to be the returns aren't going to be there anymore. And at that point, we'd be now, 6 years into his career, and we've seen 2 healthy seasons, 2 fully healthy seasons. 7 years into his career, and we've seen 3 healthy seasons, whatever it be. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's one you need to have. And the other uncomfortable conversation that I had with myself this weekend, hanging up the Christmas lights. By the way, I didn't mention this earlier when I was hanging up my Christmas lights. I take great pride in my Christmas lights. I really enjoy hanging them. But I made a rookie mistake. If you ever become a homeowner, don't make the same mistake I did. Check the lights before you hang them. Just plug them in real quick. Make sure they're all working.
Yeah.
Because I hung them on a couple of trees, and there's a couple strands that are out. So now I didn't have the energy to do them on Saturday or Sunday or today because it's snowing. But I've got to change those lights here soon. Don't be a rookie like me. Check the lights before you hang them. But when I was hanging the lights, I started thinking about this team. And the only thing that this Cincinnati Bengals team has shown us, you can say, what do you definitively know about the team that we watch every single Sunday? What do you definitively know about the Cincinnati Bengals? And you say, well, their defense is bad, their offense great. It's like, yeah. I think the only thing that we definitively know about this Bengals is that they will always subvert what we think we know. What's the old cliche? The only constant in life is change. Every time that I sit and I think I've whittled down or I've nailed down what this Bengals team is, they completely subvert it. I was ready for this team to be the worst team in football, and what do? They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday Night Football and look great. Okay, so then you play the New York Jets, and this team's going to be back to 500, and what do? They blow it. Oh, you're getting blown out at home by the Chicago Bears. What do? They return an onside kick and take the lead with a minute to go. The only thing that I understand about this Cincinnati Bengals team, really for the last 2 years, is that I have no effing clue what's going to happen next. And this team, for whatever reason, through the entire Zach Taylor era, has always played to the level of the competition that they've played. When they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, that's their best games of the year. When they're playing the Buffalo Bills, that's oftentimes their best games of the year. Remember 2023 when we beat the 49ers out there in the Bay Area? Best game of the year. And then what happens? They give up 450 yards to Mike White, and 500 yards of offense to the New York Jets, and 580 yards of offense to the Chicago Bears, and 48 points to Carson Wentz and the Minnesota Vikings. They play to the level of their competition. And the next 5 weeks is the hardest level of competition that they would play all season long. To where it feels like you can just throw them away at this point. 3-6, about to play the toughest 5-game stretch of the season. 3 games against division rivals. But I'll just tell you, as much as you guys want to, and as much as I want to almost just be done with this team because of the roller coaster that they put us in for the first 9 weeks of this season, they win at the ketchup bottle this Sunday. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they are now 3-0, right? Yeah, 3-0 in the division. And 4-6, where the Steelers would be 5-5, and the Baltimore Ravens will likely be 5-5 when we play them 2 times over the next 4 weeks. They'd be right back to sucking us back in. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I just know that over the course of Zach Taylor's career, that you can never expect them to do something, but you can always expect them to play near the level of competition that they're playing. So over the next 5 weeks, we've seen crazier things than this team go 3-2. We've seen crazier things and then rattle off 4 wins and the craziest way. Maybe make a statement win against the Buffalo Bills, who, by the way, just got blown out by a terrible team in the Miami Dolphins. Maybe we'll get the Baltimore Ravens of the beginning of the year where they started 1-5 and right back in the thick of things now. They're 1 game back in the AFC North. Hell, maybe we'll see a season where the Bengals go 7-10, but they're 6-0 in the division. The only thing you can expect from this Cincinnati Bengals team over the course of the Zach Taylor era or whatever we're watching on a week-to-week basis, because I don't know what the heck we're watching, the only thing you can expect is that they will subvert your expectations. Stone, am I just getting to the point now where I'm crazy and I'm grasping at straws and I just want them, I'm projecting that I want them to do something crazy like rattle off 4 wins in a row so I can, even though I'm saying I want to just be out and understand where this direction of this team's going, that I can just have fun as a fan again? Do you think I'm projecting a bit much here when I say this team's going to play up to their competition for the next few weeks?
No, I don't think so. Look, I mean, we're all kind of – you mentioned the word disarray earlier. That's kind of how we're all as a fan base right now. You got these rumors about Joe Burrow. You're sitting there. You should have beat the Jets and the Bears. It feels like you had them both beat, and then you lost. Now, next thing you know, the Steelers are losing. You're looking at your schedule. You're going, oh, my goodness, we beat Pittsburgh. We're right back in this thing. So I get it. It's definitely a lot to process. But, yeah, the Steelers last night, man, they got worked by the Chargers. They got worked. And you have an opportunity to play them here. You got 2 with the Ravens coming up. So, I mean, we put out a video Friday afternoon. You called me and you're like, Stone, we need that out on YouTube. We need it out on podcast. And I believe the title of the video was The Cincinnati Bengals Can Still Beat Anyone. And we believe that's true. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot of mixed emotions here at this point. But I was watching that Pittsburgh game rather closely last night. It's like, well, they lost. You're looking at your schedule. Oh, we got them next week. The Ravens. Yeah, it feels like they're going to get hot here. They got the Jets and the Browns and then us. But, I mean, you beat Pittsburgh this week. You're kind of right back in it. So, we'll see. But it's a lot to process as a Bengals fan.
Were you obviously, as Pittsburgh Steelers haters,
yeah,
we enjoy seeing them lose.
We do.
More often, like, we love it. They're my least favorite sports team in the history of sports. I could not shake the feeling watching Sunday Night Football last night of getting pissed. Because while I'm watching them lose to the Chargers, which I expected them to do, while I'm watching them lose at SoFi Stadium, I just couldn't help but get so mad because I said when we beat them on Thursday Night Football a month ago, I said there's a really high chance that this team is 5-4 going into our next meeting on November 16th. And if we could just win one of our next 2 home games against the Jets and the Bears, we'd be playing for supremacy in the AFC North. Did that cross your brain watching the game last night?
Yeah,
And how did you react to that thought entering the brain?
I kind of had a bit of a different perspective on it, maybe more of a positive perspective because, you know, the defense has been so bad. And you sit there and you go, my goodness, with this historical, hilariously bad defense that the Bengals had, if they could have just won one of those games, like we're literally talking about this defense potentially being in a playoff game, which is really hard to wrap your head around. Right. Imagine this Bengals defense going out there on wild card weekend. Like that's
a wild card, all right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I totally get it. There's definitely some frustration where you're sitting there like, good Lord, just one game. You could have, if you just win one of those games, you're right here. But I was kind of like, I mean, it's kind of crazy that they're still here. I mean, we've done it. It kind of feels like the Reds. There's several times this year with the Bengals where we were like, yep, it's over, it's done. You beat Pittsburgh, we're right back in once again. So I totally hear you, though. It's definitely frustrating seeing how that game transpired last night. And you were all over it, by the way, going into that Thursday night game. You said, hey, there's a good chance that this is for the division when we rematch here in a
Right.
couple of weeks. And who would have thought that the one game we win is Pittsburgh and you lose the other two? I don't know if many people saw that coming, but yeah, you were all over that.
Yeah, it's just thinking back to how the Jets game ended, how that Bears game ended. It sucks. It sucks. But here we are. They're gonna keep trying to win, so we got to keep rooting for them. 5-game stretch where they play the Steelers, the Ravens twice, and then the AFC East, the New England Patriots, and the Buffalo Bills here coming up over the next 5 games. And man, if they can get to 3-2, where they're 6-8 going into those final 3 games, maybe Joe Burrow comes back, because 9-8 can win this division. Go look at what the Steelers have ahead of them. Go look at what the Ravens have ahead of them. The Ravens have some easy games over the next 2 weeks, but if the Bengals are going to have to get to 9 wins, they're going to have to beat the Ravens. So it can get kind of dicey. And that's all I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that we're sitting here in December talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. This show started back up, the second week of September? And we declared on the gurney the Red season dead 2 to 3 different times by 2 to 3 different hosts. And here we are in the beginning of November as snow is glistening, falling to the ground. We've already declared it dead a few times. And I mean, it'd just be so Bengals for them to beat the Steelers, and God, I hope it happens. And then rattle off 3 or 4 games and right back in the thick of things. But you know who it has postseason aspirations still alive and just advanced in the postseason is Football Club Cincinnati, the FCC. And straight from the Flying Lion podcast, we have Sam Wade. Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show once again, and we're happy to have you on, especially after the big win on Saturday night. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Obviously, vibes are high. Like you said, the one team in Cincinnati right now that's not dead yet, and that's FC Cincinnati, right? We continue to keep rolling. An absolute phenomenal win against the Crew, getting the monkey off our back, if you will. 2 different scenarios, right, where we got off our backs last year, losing in a best-of-3 series in the first round, and then 2 years ago, losing against the Crew in the Eastern Conference Finals, got rid of both in the same, series. Mm-hmm. So that was good. Obviously, vibes are very good right now.
Yeah. So you mentioned getting the monkey off your back, and any jaded sports fan knows what it feels like to see your team constantly be on the doorstep and not get there once again. Take me through how nervous you were in that 63rd minute when Columbus Crew takes the lead 1-0.
Oh my gosh. So unfortunately I wasn't able to be in the building for this one. But my counterpart, Ryan, he was in the building. So we were texting back and forth, but I was watching it from home, and I probably was standing up for the last 40 minutes of the match, just, on edge. But yeah, I mean, this match, it showed a lot of signs of game 1, where both very back and forth. FC Cincinnati kind of had the bulk of the good chances. And then unfortunately the Crew were able to kind of get that first goal. But this game was kind of the redemption story for Brenner in FC Cincinnati. And, the 2 goals, his first ever goal versus Columbus in any competition, which was really cool. He kind of flipped the narrative on his return. And so the finish, both finishes were very poised, very calm, cool, collected, and the celebrations, the vibes was, like I said, just once again, the vibes. But for Brenner, he's on loan with FC Cincinnati. That is now 6 goals and 1 assist in only 9 games that he has played with us. So him being able to get acclimated with the squad this quickly and being able to make an impact in the playoffs, right, when it matters most in a win or go home game, is exactly what you want from a player like that.
Yeah, so that was the next question I was going to ask. You get a player like Brenner. Obviously, he had some previous tenure here in Cincinnati, but you bring him back in and he makes an immediate impact. Break that down a little bit more about how important he's been to FCC since he's come back in August.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a player that has a motor, right? He wants to be here. You can tell that this second go round means a little bit more to him. When he first came back on loan and was with the squad, he was telling reporter Laurel Fowler, like, hey, I was really immature when I left. I just wanted to move to Europe, and now that I'm back, like, I really want to make amends and leave this place better than I found it and maybe even stay longer, right? And that's the talk right now is, can we open up, another DP spot for the MLS? That's, another roster spot for him to see if he can stay, because he's absolutely showing that he wants to be here. And the ability to play within the lines up top, he's very different from Kevin Denke in the sense that he will track back and be able to get the ball from the defense and not just wait up top right for the ball. He's very active in that sense and will help out in the defense. So that way he can, be on the end of one of those goals like he was in the attack.
All right. So the next match is against Inter Miami in 2 weeks. Obviously the big name there is Lionel Messi, who's now at the ripe age of 38 years old. He's old. How good is he still? Like how good
phenomenal. Is he? He's so good. I mean, there's a reason he's the MVP of the league, right? Messi is one of, if not the greatest player of all time. So the looming showdown with Messi is obviously it's going to be an instant classic, an instant marquee matchup. That's why you're seeing tickets that are $200 plus already, right? Which is just insane. I think I've seen tickets 1,000 plus. So this is going to be one for the ages. The matchup against Miami, we have the all-time matchup actually versus them is 5 wins each, right? 5 losses each and 2 draws, right? So it's even across the board. So this is going to be kind of the tiebreaker, right, for the all-time matchup, as well as this season we beat them 3-0 in the first matchup and then 0-0 draw. So we actually have played pretty well against them throughout the season. So we have their card, right? So hopefully being able to continue that is what we're looking for. But yeah, Messi's a special player, and it's going to take the defensive midfield in Giddey or Obi to kind of shut them down. I mean, he's got the likes of Jordi Alba, Busquets that are kind of on their retirement run. They're going to be retiring at the end of the season. So obviously Miami's going to be playing for them a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, you mentioned, and I want to get back to how we match up with Miami, but you mentioned the ticket prices for this match. Have they announced the time of the game? Because I know it was between Saturday or Sunday. Have they announced it yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet so far. I know it may even come later today or as we're speaking, but this morning I have not seen anything so far. But like you said, either November 22nd or the 23rd.
It looks like the 23rd at 5 p.m. is what I'm seeing right now.
So it'll be directly after the Bengals play at 1 p.m. that day. I think the Bengals play at 1, gets done at 4, and then FC going right into that. So maybe there'll be some good Chatterbox content coming out that day. Yeah. Sam, are you going to be going? Are you going to be going to the match? Are you going to get the tickets? Does the bank account allow? Yeah. Is you going to be getting there?
I'd say probably not. Just because once again, if it's going to be the same weather it is outside today, probably not, right? Because you never know in this Midwest weather, right? It's going to start snowing. So I will gladly watch it from the warmth of my home. But I don't know. Ryan may go. He's a season ticket holder, so he's more likely to go than I am. But if he buys 2 tickets, I'll go with him.
I put in our Discord, which I believe you guys are in as well, and obviously a lot of people that watch the show are in the Discord. I put in there, I said, if tickets are under $100, I'm going to my first game at TQL, and I half knew that tickets were not going to be under $100 when I made that proclamation. There wasn't a chance that Messi coming to town was going to call for tickets under 100, but it'll be an exciting atmosphere. You broke down a little bit kind of the tale of the tape between Miami and FC this season and kind of the history of it. Is there anywhere, do we have strengths that, match up well with their weaknesses? Are there anything that we can exploit, or is there any way that, I guess essentially what I'm asking is where can and how can we win this match?
Yeah, I think we absolutely have a chance. That's the reason we're the higher seed, right? And all year we've shown depth, being able to I think that's a big piece, as well as Miami's defense isn't the best. Obviously, they have a marquee guy in Messi that's able to, just completely do his own thing up top. But in the back line, if we're able to exploit their back line, similar to what we did in the 3-0 win, right? I believe in that game, Evander had 2 goals, right? So if he's able to show up, He kind of did a little bit better in this game 3 than he did in the previous 2 games. If he's able to show up as well as Brenner continues to stay on the hot streak that he's on, we can get Kevin Denke going. I mean, the depth is something that's going to be really crucial playing against a guy like Messi, right? Because you want to wear him out and then you want to go for the knockout blow, right? So that's whether that's bringing somebody off the bench or just using the players you have in the 11, at that time. I think that's definitely probably going to be the key, as well as Ender Echenike. He had a phenomenal game 3. He was going up the wing, being able to create from the outside, being able to cross balls in. So look for him to kind of play another big role in this game. I know it kind of sucks because we got international duty in the middle of MLS playoffs, which it's ridiculous. But we got to wait another week, and then hopefully Cincinnati fans stay with us. We stay relevant, and we can get a good crowd at TQL.
Well, off the bench will be stay with it. You opened up a door there by complaining about the MLS's schedule, because I've had you on before and it makes absolutely no sense to me. One thing that does not make sense to me, and you're going to speak on behalf of the MLS here, so I'm going to put you in a tough spot. How does it make sense that the first round is a 3-match series, and then every round beyond that is winner goes on?
It doesn't. That's the beauty of the MLS, right? Is we try and be different than everybody else, which it doesn't make any sense. Like you said, I personally think everything should be just traditional as it is, one-off games. And if there's, a tie at the end of 90 minutes, we go to extra time. If there's a tie after that, we go to PKs, right? Like, let's keep it traditional throughout the entire thing. Let's not try and reinvent the wheel here. But yeah, I think, when I came on the first time, I touched on, the scheduling being a bigger issue. And that's kind of what this international, break is in the middle of MLS playoffs, right? Like, we have the NBA that is just now starting. We've got college basketball that is just now starting, right? Both of those things, right? I mean, we have marquee matchups a little bit in college basketball, but not enough to generate like a whole bunch of buzz, right? Mm-hmm. This would be a perfect opportunity for the MLS to kind of capitalize on that, be able to take some things away. Obviously, like the NFL and college football have the weekends, so maybe that Friday night, like you've got something there. So yeah, I just don't understand what the MLS is doing. I know if they're able to get on the same page as the rest of Europe and everybody else, it should flow more smoothly, and you don't have the international duty in the middle of MLS playoffs. But here we are.
Yeah, it's hard for guys like me who admittedly don't watch a whole lot of MLS soccer.
I know, and we want you to watch. We want you to watch.
I know, and it's just broken up all over the place. My favorite is the Cup will be at the end of December.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I think like December 6th or something like that is the estimated date. Yeah.
So it'll be December 6th, and then the season starts Valentine's Day weekend, like the second week of February. So have a good off season.
Especially because we're playing in Champions Cup, right? So you play early if you're an FC Cincinnati fan now too. So.
Oh well. Yeah. Sam, thank you so much for being on the show. I think there was a new Flying Line podcast that came out last night, right?
Yep. Yeah.
What days are we coming out this week? Is it Tuesday, Thursday?
So this week we did the episode on Sunday. You'll see clips that'll come out as far as like longer segments, because it is international duty. It's going to be a little bit different, right? Because not much to talk about during international duty, but we will have the clips come out throughout the week. Check us out on the Instagram, on the Twitter, on Chatterbox YouTube, so that way you can stay up to date. And hopefully next Sunday, Monday, we'll have our preview for this next round for the conference semifinals against Miami.
That hair is glorious. What kind of product we using?
A little bit of I think, what is it? Old Spice. A little of the Old Spice.
Just Old Spice. It's absolutely glorious. And I was just going to pay you a compliment as someone who
appreciate you. I hope to have it left very long. Yes.
Yeah, you got a lot more time than I have. I'm on the death's doorstep with the hair up top. Sam, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations to FCC. Let's beat Lionel Messi next week, and hopefully you get some tickets to that game. Hopefully you get into TQL.
That'd be nice.
All right, see you, Sam. FCC. I'm glad that we can bond on one thing, and it is how ludicrous the MLS schedule can be at times. Because like I've said, And he actually laid this out really perfectly about how there's certain markets that when you're a growing sport, which the MLS is undoubtedly a growing sport here in this country, that you can get into and kind of create a little bit of a market for yourself. But when your matches are on Saturday night going up against, the heart of college football at the end of the season, or going up against Sunday or NFL Sundays and stuff like that, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And on top of that, you're right in the middle of your postseason, and then you're taking a break. Like, it feels like it's just strike while the iron's hot. It feels like it'd be more advantageous to finish their season before football starts. But I'm not the director of the MLS, nor will I ever be. But I am sometimes a fan of FC Cincinnati, as I was on Saturday night. I actually sat down and watched a little bit of that match. Didn't get to watch the whole thing. As I mentioned, I was out running about, and I know it was at nighttime, but I did get to see a good portion of that, and obviously saw the highlights and the win afterwards. So it was an astounding win. Anytime you can beat your rival, as we're going to do this Sunday in Pittsburgh, anytime you can beat your rival, it must feel great. It must feel great. All right, Lionel Messi, he's 38 years old. Do you think we can pull in, because I think part of the deal was, and I'm sorry if I'm misspoken here, part of the deal was with Lionel Messi, he kind of owns the team now. Like, they gave him ownership of the team to get him. Think we can get like a Ronaldo or something? I think he's down in Saudi Arabia, but you think we can get I don't even know who the greats are in soccer right now. I think we can get one here, and it's like, here, you can have the entire team. Yeah. But come play for us, please. You think we can pull that one off?
I mean, I would respect that move. It doesn't seem like a very Cincinnati-like move to do something like that. But, yeah. Messi, look, I'm not a soccer guy. You're probably more of a soccer guy than me, and I know you're not really a big soccer guy either. But when you hear Messi's coming to town, like, I don't care how old he is. I mean, that's all-time stuff right there. So if you beat him in the playoffs at home, I mean, come on now. I mean, what? That's the same day as Bengals-Pats here in Cincinnati, and the soccer match obviously is here as well. So that should be a fun Sunday here in the city in a couple of weeks. Hopefully the city shows out.
Justin Edgel with a $5 super chat. He's fired up about Sam Wade coming on here from the Flying Line podcast. Legit guest covering the only team worth dung in the city. I'm fired up.
Yes,
I'm fired up. I think I towed the line there. Great. Thank you so much, Justin. I don't know if we had another super chat during this show. I think we had one other. Justin Edgel became a member earlier. Trading Burrow is the right move. What good is this team without him right now? 8 or 9 wins at most. Blow it up. Problem is, Tobin is too dense to make it happen. I'm not going down the rabbit hole of if it's the right move or if it's the wrong move. I don't want to make a statement like that. I don't want to make a takeaway like that. I don't want to have my name on, hey, I'm the guy in town that wants to trade Joe Burrow. But I will be the guy that will talk about it, because it seems that we are getting closer and closer to heading down that interstate, getting off of that exit ramp of, hey, this is a likelihood, especially if things continue to go sour here in Cincinnati, whether it be Zach Taylor losing his job or Duke Tobin losing his job or whatever it might be, where this season is blown up and we might have one more run at it. And I would argue you want to get rid of an asset before it depreciates too much. And if he misses another season due to an injury, then I don't know what else you have there. I don't know how much more you have there. But I'm done. I promise, Stone. Yeah. I know it gets you worked up.
It does a little bit. Look, there's a non-zero chance that there is chatter about that this offseason. But just so we're clear, there is a 0% chance Joe Burrow puts on a different uniform next year. 0. I feel good about saying that.
All right, fair enough. I think the non-zero chance is from him getting traded. I think there's a very high chance that there's some noise this offseason.
There will be noise.
There will undoubtedly be noise. The Jets, with all of their picks and not having a quarterback, all that stuff, like, there will be noise, especially what happens if Matt Stafford calls it a career at the end of this year, something like that. And then now the Rams are in the business of looking for an heir. And I don't know. I just wanted to get that on your guys' plate. It won't be the last time we bring it up here on Off the Bench. I can promise you that. Stone, I have a question. I was watching NFL Sunday yesterday. Yeah. One of the few times, because normally I'm doing the watch along, so I'm locking into one game. Yesterday I got to sit around and just kind of take in a lot of NFL Sunday. And forgive me for not polishing this question better. I'm just going to throw it at you as blunt and as crass as I can. Who the heck is good in the AFC?
Yeah.
who the heck is good? Like, I do not have an idea because, once again, the Bills, after beating the Chiefs, look like they're the best team in the AFC. They lose to the Dolphins 30-13. I mean, the Colts got a win in Berlin, but they just lost to the Steelers, who looked like who's good in the American Football Conference?
I think it's the team that I had at number 1 in my power rankings, and a lot of people were laughing at me. But, yeah, the New England Patriots, turns out they're pretty good, even against really good teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I hear you totally, right? You look at the NFC. I mean, the NFC playoffs, that's going to be awesome start to finish.
Right.
But, yeah, you look at the AFC, and I get people still have questions about New England, and rightfully so. Their quarterback's playing at a high level. Did have that turnover in the end zone. It's just like you can't be making that kind of a mistake. He only completed like 50% of his passes, maybe a little bit over that in the game. So he wasn't, all world in the game against Tampa. But I look at the AFC, and I freaking love their coach, Mike Vrabel. I love the skill guys. Defensively, they set the edge. That's a defensive line that's really, really good. And I think they're probably the most complete football team. It was kind of went out on a limb there last week when I put them at 1, but obviously I'm feeling pretty good about that right now. And do you feel good about the Patriots in a situation when you're matched up with Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, despite what happened against Miami for Buffalo and despite the recent struggles of Kansas City? Probably not, right? It's going to be one of those things with these under-the-radar type teams like a New England or an Indy where it's like, okay, yeah, you're good, but go beat Mahomes or Allen in the playoffs, and we'll believe it when we see it type situation. But, yeah, I mean, the NFL feels – I can't remember a time where it felt this lopsided as far as the conferences go.
Yeah, well, I would say the AFC has been way lopsided over the past few years over the NFC. Even when the NFC had teams like the Eagles and the 49ers, their third team, the AFC, between the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, and so on and so forth, just seemed way more in front of it. Woke up today, and Drake May is the co-favorite, according to betting odds, to win the National Football MVP award. So that's pretty impressive. And I know in the 2024 draft class we talked about, is this like a really good draft class when it comes to quarterbacks? And obviously Jaden Daniels had the year that he had last year. Drake May's having the year that he had this year. Caleb Williams keeps meandering around. Good. He seems like he's a starter in this league. There's no doubt about it. And he's got horsepower to take him to the next level. We'll see if he ever gets there. But that draft class looking more and more competent. Bo Nix is 8-2. J.J. McCarthy has looked okay since coming back. So that draft class is really interesting. And I do wonder, the Patriots obviously get the big win against the Bucs. They've now won 7 in a row. And I wonder if we're just victims of the moment when it comes to the Patriots, or if this is truly one of the best team in the AFC. I wonder if it's just, hey, we're riding high, because we've done that. I know you do your power rankings every single week, and we've done that here on the show where you go like, oh, the Chiefs are good now. Oh, no, the Chiefs are bad now. Oh, the Bills are good now. Oh, the Bills are bad. The Bucs are the best team. Oh, the Bucs. Are we victims of the moment right now when it comes to the Patriots? Too much so, or is it well warranted?
I think it's well warranted. I mean, I understand they have the weakest schedule in the National Football League. That's fine. But, I look at them as a team, they beat Buffalo already, and they just beat Tampa. Is Tampa as good as they were earlier in the year? No, they've got their injury issues. And without Mike Evans, that's a completely different football team. We can all be honest when it comes to that. But I love their coach, man. Mike Vrabel is awesome. And the fact that the Tennessee Titans ever let him go is just it's a travesty, honestly, if you're a Tennessee Titan fan. Every aspect of coaching, he is elite. And we all like Drake May. We didn't know necessarily what his ceiling looked like. And clearly with Josh McDaniels back, Dan Orlovsky had the tweet, I believe it was yesterday when he put it out, there's elements to this offense where you're like, oh, this kind of reminds you of the Brady. I'm not saying Drake May is Tom Brady, but just offensively, you're like, well, that kind of looks familiar. We saw that a few years ago. And say what you want about Josh McDaniels as a head coach. Some people just aren't meant to be head coaches, but they're really, really good offensive coordinators, and he was meant to tutor quarterbacks and call plays, and he's done a tremendous job of that. The defense is great. Limited distractions. Remember, all the noise outside with Stephon Diggs. Haven't really heard anything about that in recent weeks. He's behaving. He's playing pretty well as well. So I understand there's people that aren't going to be completely sold on him because they haven't played a ton of great teams, but I don't think I'm a falling victim to the moment here. I've been on the Pats for a while, and I think they're a real threat to win the AFC.
Are they a bigger surprise this year than the Colts?
No, not to me. Because I was high on Drake May, and did I think he was going to be this good? Absolutely not. But I think, when you see Daniel Jones take over a team, I don't think there's going into this year, you could have super high expectations. So to me, the Colts are a significantly bigger surprise than New England.
Who's the biggest shock that they're not good this year in the NFL? Because, I mean, there's a few options I'll give you because I'm putting you on the spot a bit here. A few options, like the Commanders have now lost 5 in a row. They're 3-7. Obviously, Jaden Daniels been hurt in some degree. The Ravens are back to where kind of we are. They are the betting favorites once again, as they always were, to win the AFC North. So they really can't be thrown on the list. The Atlanta Falcons, I mean, I saw someone just put in the chat, how are they that bad with this roster? I think 2 years ago, people were ready to crown this Falcons roster as one of the best in the NFC. And really, we just haven't seen them blossom into the team that we once thought they were destined to be. There's a couple other teams. Like, I think it would shock a lot of people that the Kansas City Chiefs, if you told them that they were going to be 5-4 through 9 weeks, that'd shock a lot of people. Who's the biggest shock this season to you on the negative side? They're just Houston Texans, another team that you could probably throw in that.
Right. I think, for me, it's got to be the Commanders, which I kind of kicked myself a little bit about that because the signs were there that it was borderline fraudulent, and they kind of got overly aggressive here this offseason. They brought in some older players, and that kind of has backfired. They made the trade at the deadline last year for Lattimore. That didn't work out whatsoever, right? So I think clearly it's probably the Commanders. I mean, they went to the championship game last year, but, when you have a quarterback that struggles staying healthy, as Daniels has done this year, that obviously can happen, but it looks like they're a ways away from being a good football team again. So I think that's the one that stands out. I think we all were shocked that the Ravens started off as poorly as they did, but then you watch that game against Minnesota, and you're like, oh, they're getting healthier on their back end. Oh, they're flying around. Oh, yeah, Lamar looks like he's comfortable, trusting his hamstring yet again, and they proved to be a threat. But to sit here and say that the Ravens were going to be 4-5 on November 10th, I mean, that's a shock to me, right? And obviously they still have everything in front of them, but I would say those are probably the two top ones. I thought Houston would win that division. Stroud seemingly has regressed. They had issues along the offensive line. It's a top 3 defense. I mean, they gave up a lot of points to Jacksonville, but it's a really good defense there. So that's another one you mentioned that you throw their name in the hat there as well. But I think it's got to be the Commanders probably.
Yeah, the Commanders are probably a tale or a cautionary tale on thinking that you can go into the free agency and solve all your problems. Because that's what they tried. I mean, they go out and make trades, and they bring all this acquisition in. Listen, guys, this league, we know how you win in this league. You got to have a good coach, you got to have a good quarterback, and you got to draft well. Like, you do those 3 things, you're going to be very successful. That's what the successful teams do. They have a good coach, they have a good quarterback, and they draft well. And you can win with 2 of 3. Whether you have a good coach and you draft well, or whether you have you draft well and you have a good quarterback, like, you're going to win a lot of games if you just have 2 out of the 3. And the Commanders are showing that you can't just bring in acquisitions from all over the place and think that you're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Because I think that they made probably the most noise this offseason in terms of adding big pieces or big named pieces this offseason, and that just shows that, like, sometimes players get old and you can't just always rely on the free agency. The Bengals did it in 2021, as Stone liked to tell me before the show. He was like, look back at 2021, you can get all these free agents. And I was like, yeah, the Bengals had a decent defense from all those free agents, but you got to remember, they brought about 9 guys in on free agency and hit on 8 of them. The only one they missed on was Trey Waynes. They hit on Louisier. They hit on Eli Apple. They hit on Trey Hendrickson. They hit on Von Bell. They hit on every single piece that they brought in. It just happened to work out. Ogunjobi. Like, it was a very, very high clip. So you can't rely overly on the free agency. You got to draft well, man. It sucks kind of because it feels like there should be more options to win, but it's also fair because that's how every team has to win. Got to have 2 out of the 3 to be really competitive in this league. And if you get 3 out of 3, you're a Super Bowl contender. We have another super chat from Justin Edgell. He must have gotten the tariff dividend that we were promised over the weekend because he puts in another $5 super chat. It's to you, Stone. Hey, Stone.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered adding a D at the end of your name? I don't think Stone Shields plays.
Right, or Michael Shields. Yeah, I don't think so. So Yeah. No, I haven't considered that, but several people have made that joke, believe it or not, in my lifetime. Several people, a couple. So
Stony baloney, and all that good stuff. Yeah, it's like my name lends itself to some reoccurring jokes, believe it or not. Mouse.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, my first name's Nicholas. I don't go by Nicholas, but my first name's Nicholas. No one's ever like put together that like you call me Nicky. My name sounds like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
It's Nicky Mouse. No one's put that one together too often. In fact, more often than not in my life, people are like, I'm going to start calling. They figure out my first name's Nicholas. They're like, I'm going to start calling you Nicholas. And it lasts a week. And then they're like, just right back to Reed.
Yeah.
I actually get called Ridiot more than I called Nicholas. My friends, they tease me quite a bit. They take an R, put idiot in the middle, and then put a D at the end of it. And that's how they refer to me in our group chat. I get bullied in most aspects of my life, including the chat of the show that I host here. Guys, we got an exciting week for you guys laid out for the rest of this week. We play the Pittsburgh Steelers this Sunday. I think there's going to be maybe some news. I think there's a new deadline in each aspect of this week. I got to look at the off-season, MLB off-season calendar to see what the next deadline is, when free agency starts, when 40-man rosters have to be finalized. I know the Rule 5 draft isn't for a little bit of time. But all those things, obviously, you can stay up to date. Nick Kirby, Craig Sandlin, Trace Fowler, they'll keep you up to date on Chatterbox Reds. Chatterbox Bearcats will be back later this week because they have basketball games and they have a football game this Saturday. And Chatterbox Bengals will be here all week, as well off the bench. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 10. The Stone Shield Show coming up right here on Chatterbox Sports. See ya.
Here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show here on a Monday. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Got an exciting week on the horizon. Plenty of stuff to talk about. The Cincinnati Bengals obviously did not play this weekend. Bye week. They certainly needed it. We'll see if we see a different level of energy and execution maybe on the defensive side of the football come Sunday at 1 o'clock on the road against Pittsburgh. I think a lot of us certainly have our doubts as it relates to that, but plenty of Bengals conversation to be had this week. here on the show. Also, we're going to start today's show actually by talking about the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team as they won again on Friday. They played Georgia State in that game, so not exactly elite level competition there for the Cats, but a big one tomorrow at Fifth Third as they host the Dayton Flyers, and that's a good measuring stick type of game here early in the season for the Cincinnati Bearcats. I'm not going to say I'm all in on the Cats, but I'm definitely very interested in what they could do because Baba Miller looks like a complete star, and obviously he showed that last year at FAU, but coming here to Cincinnati, he's kind of picked up right where he left off, and in a lot of ways has gotten even better as a player. So we'll start with some Cincinnati Bearcats conversation. We'll try to get another Bearcat guest on this week. We've talked to Hudson Klauke a lot as well of Chatterbox Bearcats, of course. Also some guys at Bearcat Journal perhaps that we could bring on the show. Keegan Nixon, also a guy that we've brought on. He wrote a great piece after the game, by the way, on Friday night. So we'll try to talk a little bit more Bearcat basketball tomorrow, potentially get a guest on there. And we'll talk Cincinnati Bengals, as I mentioned. Paul Dehner Jr., I believe last Thursday, put out kind of a mailbag type of article, kind of breaking down some aspects to the team and kind of his vision for what they should do here this offseason. We'll break that down. I have my thoughts there as well. I think offensively, you kind of just got to bring everybody back. We'll spend some time talking about the offensive line a little bit there as well, but I think every single dollar, every single draft pick, unless you trade him, of course, should be allocated to the defensive side of the football. And I know that's a real hot take there, Stone. I understand. But we're going to break that down exactly on what to do with the defensive side of the football because really there's only one guy that you can have any kind of trust in, and that, of course, is DJ Turner. So we'll talk about that on the show as well. Plenty to discuss as a whole in the National Football League. Aaron Rodgers, he went out there on Sunday Night Football. Look, that might be the worst game that he's played that I've seen. Maybe there's some games early in his career in Green Bay, or obviously there was a few disaster class games with the New York Jets. But the whole thing about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers this year was, the Steelers have lost some games, but Aaron Rodgers has looked like a really, really good quarterback throughout the entire season. And for the first time this year, he looked old, right? He did not want to hang in the pocket and take those shots. That defense was suffocating. And the Steelers got worked, man, on Sunday Night Football by the Chargers, by the way, a team without both of their starting tackles. So we'll spend some time talking about that. Also, the MVP race in the National Football League. I think there's 4 guys, really, that are in consideration for the award right now. I don't have Mahomes or Allen, by the way, as for those guys. If they get hot and they go on a run and drop some crazy stats, I think they could certainly enter the conversation. But there's 4 guys that I think kind of separated themselves from the pack here at this point. We'll break down those 4 guys. Also, an incredible weekend of college football there as well. Also, a great weekend for best bets of the weekend. We needed it. 0-5 2 weeks ago. We respond this week with a 4-1 performance, so that certainly was needed. Great execution there. Shout out Willie J for helping us with those picks. But Texas Tech, they cruise against BYU. I think a lot of us saw that coming. Makes that BYU-Cincinnati game even bigger for the Cougars, obviously. Indiana, who the committee thinks is clearly the second-best team. We don't here at the show, and I think they showed why. I think a lot of people are saying, that's Mendoza's Heisman moment, whereas I look at that and I go, well, it took a miracle drive in order to win the game. Maybe if he played better throughout the first, 58 minutes, they wouldn't be in that spot. So I don't view that as a Heisman moment for Mendoza. It was all the catch, by the way, by Cooper there in the back of the end zone that hauled it in. So I've got a different viewpoint there. Indiana's still obviously really good. Penn State, they got NFL guys all over their defense. I understand that. I don't think that was really a Heisman moment. I think some of the throws Julian Sayin made on Saturday were some Heisman moment type of throws. Obviously, he was playing Purdue. Certainly a difference in level of competition there. But we'll spend time talking about that at the end of today's show. Ohio State rolls again. Their schedule stinks. We know this. They got UCLA this week at home. Whoop-de-doo, right? That's going to be another easy victory for them. Alabama, who we've got at number 2, 20-9. Didn't exactly go out there and light up the scoreboard, but they played well defensively, and that, to me, is huge for this Alabama team because if they're going to defend like that, look out. Here come the Crimson Tide. Also, Alabama hoops. What a win they picked up, Nate Oates and company, against St. John's on a college football Saturday. Great sporting events all day on Saturday. Really tremendous stuff. Oregon comes back, by the way. They kick a game-winning field goal. What a kick, by the way, from that kid. And in the elements, tough game. And, I think I look at that Oregon game and people say, oh, that's sloppy. They're not for real. I look at that Oregon game and say, you know what? I think a lot of us thought they were going to lose, and they found a way to pick up a victory. I probably have a little bit more respect. And if I'm another team, a little bit more fear when it comes to the Oregon Ducks after that performance, despite the fact they only scored, 18 points or so there in that game. Let's start with the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team. They beat Georgia State 74-64 on Friday. They play Dayton tomorrow. Measuring stick game very early. Obviously, they sit at 2-0. A couple of storylines in that game. Buck Harris, Sincere Harris, getting him in the portal, right? What was it? Illinois and then West Virginia. Now he comes here for a year. He's an off-the-bench type of guy, and he is just a freaky athlete, and he's got some bunnies, and he can defend. He's a presence at the rim there as well. And he was banged up. He hurt his wrist in the opener against West Carolina, and Wes Miller was kind of talking about, it didn't look like he was going to play there for a while, but he insisted upon going out there and playing, and he had another solid game for the Cats. Baba Miller, transfer, FAU. There were some questions about who was going to be the one for Cincinnati coming into the year. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Baba, but here after 2 games, we know Baba Miller is that guy. He is the guy that can be the number one on a team that makes it to the tournament and goes on a run. He's the real deal. He's that good, and he's going to play in the NBA in a matter of time, to be completely honest with you. He's just so versatile, right? Wes Miller talked about him working on his jump shot. Now he can shoot, and he's a presence from behind the arc there as well. Well, you know what he can do getting to the basket. You know what he can do facilitating. You know what he can do defensively, blocking shots, getting steals. He's just a complete player, kind of a Swiss Army knife type guy for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Back-to-back double-doubles for him. And there's plenty of reason to be really excited about Baba Miller, because when Cincinnati takes the floor, even when their schedule gets a little bit more difficult here, obviously we talked about the non-conference slate with Hudson Cloukey, and we had some question marks in years past, like, okay, you're winning all these games, it's kind of looking ugly, but you're not playing anybody. This year it's a different story. Obviously we know about Dayton and Xavier, but you also have teams like Georgia. You also have teams like Clemson, who aren't, powerhouses when it comes to college hoops, but they're certainly better than some of the teams you've played in your non-conference in years past there as well. So they're going to get tested a little bit more here, and whenever Baba Miller takes the floor, there's an opportunity that the Bearcats have the best player on the floor, and it is Baba Miller, regardless of, even when they enter into the Big 12. I think there's some situations where he could be the best player out there as well. This kid's absolutely the real deal, but obviously the big concern on the heels of that game is turning the basketball over. Right, and when you change your play style a little bit and you sit out there and you say, we want to run, we want to get up and down the court, we want to score a lot of points, we want to use our athleticism, we want to use our gas tank, we want to use our speed, and we want to go out there and score a lot of points. And clearly that's been a kind of a change in philosophy for Wes Miller a little bit, because you hear a lot of times coaches will say this. It's easy to say it in the summer, right? It's easy to say it in exhibition games. Oh yeah, we want to go out there and we want to run, we want to play fast. But then when it comes to regular season play, are you actually going to do it? And they're really trying to stick with it. And there's some growing pains that come with that. And Wes alluded to that after the game against Georgia State. Now, it's a completely different team, apart from Day Thomas, of course. But when you're going through a change in philosophy, it can be a little bit bumpy at first. And that's kind of the situation the Bearcats find themselves in. 8 first-half turnovers, and many of those are unforced, right? It's one thing if it's like, well, they're just, the other team, they're doing a great job defensively. They're getting, intercepting passes, getting in the passing lanes, flying around defensively. Not really the case, right? You're seeing a lot of traps. You're seeing a lot of double dribbles, just kind of self-inflicted wounds that's kind of hurting this team, right? Again, 8 in the first half. Kirk Risa, who had a great assist, on one of those dunks there for Baba in the first half, he had 3 turnovers, right? Not ideal there for him. And you had 16 total in the game, and you had 15 total in game 1. So if you're going to continue to turn the ball over at that clip, you're going to find yourself in deep holes when you play elite levels of competition. And Dayton, by no stretch of the imagination, is an elite basketball team. But if you turn the ball over 16-plus times against the Flyers, you're not going to win the game. And I think we all understand that there as well. But Baba Miller, the real deal, the biggest thing as you're changing your philosophy, you're trying to play a little bit quicker, right? Something that not a ton of these guys have done. But again, this isn't Wes Miller's team from last year, completely different. And Day Thomas, of course, is back there as well. One of the things about Cincinnati this year that I said was, they're going to shoot the rock a lot better this year than they have in years past. And they had an off shooting night on Friday against Georgia State. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. They didn't shoot the ball well. The numbers weren't great. But Day Thomas actually kind of saved them, right, from a shooting perspective there in that game. So, you're going to have games like that in college basketball. You have games like that in the NBA. You just don't shoot it well. How are you going to come out and still find a way to get wins? And that's what they did. Granted, against Georgia State, turn the ball over too many times against better competition. You're not going to be able to get away with that. We all understand that. But I think there is something to be said about, okay, you know what? They still were able to control the game, take advantage of the game, and ultimately win the game despite the fact that they had so many turnovers and they did not shoot the ball particularly well. But Day Thomas, we talked about how his role this year with this team is going to change a lot, right? He was the leading scorer on the team last year. That's not what he's going to be asked to do here this year in 2025 for Wes Miller in Cincinnati. But him shooting the ball well in the game on Friday says a lot. He's got that veteran presence. You know, sometimes you're going to find yourself in a situation where it's tight late and you got a bunch of guys that haven't played a ton of basketball together. They're kind of looking around at each other like, what do we do here in this spot? Day Thomas can be that calming force that sits there and says, you know what? Let me run this thing as the point guard. I'll facilitate. I'll keep everybody on the same page, and we'll be all right. And I think that's going to pay dividends, especially as they work their way into the Big 12, right? I think that's one thing. You know, we all sit here and talk about Sean Abayev, the freshman coming in. He didn't score a ton of points in the game on Friday, right? And you hit guys in the portal. Mustafa Chiam, of course, and, of course, Baba Miller. And people kind of forget, like, oh, you got Day Thomas still. Right, this guy was the leading scorer on your team last year. This guy's a good college basketball player. He's played a lot of college basketball. And I think there are going to be moments this year for Cincinnati where he goes out and he keeps them in a game, and maybe he ultimately wins a game for them as well. So the way Wes has constructed this roster, I think, is brilliant. I think this is the best roster he's had. Obviously, you have questions about how this group can gel and how quickly they can do that. That's going to be really the biggest question for Cincinnati. But in this day and age of college basketball, NIL transfer portal, every team is dealing with this. You know, I'm a college basketball fan. I sit down and watch these games in the beginning of the year. I'm like, my goodness, all these starting fives against all these teams across the country are different for the most part. Yeah, you have a few, like, you know, funnily enough, the two best teams probably in the land, Houston and Purdue, have a lot of similarities, a lot of guys coming back. But you look at these big-time programs, and you're like, oh, he's at this school now? Oh, he transferred to here? Oh, he's starting for this team now? Oh, wait, he was here for a year? Now he was here for a year? Now he's here for a year? His third team in 3 years? So it's a lot that kind of goes into this. And, you know, it can be difficult to get on the same page early in the year, but I cannot wait for tomorrow's game on Tuesday, a real measuring stick opportunity. Again, we don't know how good the Flyers are either, but we do know one thing for certain. They're a heck of a lot better than Georgia State and Western Carolina there as well. So we'll see where this Cats team is at against better competition, how they handle the pressure, the lights, especially if it's tight late. It's one thing to go out there and play with the lead, but if you find yourself behind, who are you going to go to? Is Baba Miller going to know what to do with the basketball? Is he going to be able to score at a high level? Sean Abayev, we all like him, 5-star, clearly has the talent. He's a true freshman. How's he going to handle those big-time moments? Mustafa Chiam, down the block. When you get these teams with other big guys down there that can bang with him, how's he going to do? That's a question that certainly needs to be answered there as well, but plenty of reason to be excited about the Cats. Again, Buck Harris gutting through that wrist injury. We'll see. I would assume he's going to be available for the game against Dayton. I don't believe he suffered any setbacks in the game Friday night against Georgia State, but really looking forward to that game. We'll preview it a little bit more in depth tomorrow and potentially get on a guest to talk some UC Bearcats tomorrow before the game there as well. All right, Cincinnati Bengals. Bye week, obviously. They play on Sunday, 1 o'clock, Heinz Field, Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll look at more of the division here in a second because, one thing that I was, proud of myself for not doing with the Reds is you had so many people in the fan base that said, it's done. They're done. They're cooked. Stick a fork in them. And with the Reds, I remained patient. I said, I'm not ready to go out there and do that even after the series in Oakland or wherever they were playing the Athletics. And it felt like that was kind of it for this Reds team. I said, you know what? I mean, why we've been in it this long. Why are we bailing now? And obviously they got hot at the end. The Mets collapsed, and they were able to get in. Didn't do the same for the Cincinnati Bengals. I wrote them off after the game against the Bears. I said, that's it. You're 3-6, and you're cooked. I hope I can sit here in this very chair and kind of backpedal a little bit in the coming weeks and say, we still might have a chance here as it relates to what's transpiring in the AFC North. So we'll spend some time talking about the North here in a second, but just kind of looking ahead. And I mentioned this at the top of the show. Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic does a phenomenal job. Hopefully can have Paul on the show here shortly. He kind of had a piece that went out, kind of a mailbag type piece. That went out for The Athletic last week, and he was just kind of answering questions on, what Cincinnati should do as it relates to the offseason. Of course, there were fans, sending in questions about selling the team, and he was like, yep, ain't going to happen. That's not something you're going to see. It's still going to be the Brown family, and they're still going to be doing this for a long time, and we'll see ultimately if they can get things fixed. But, I think that, the thumbnail on this live show, it was called Strip It Down. And when I say strip it down, I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball, right? I'm not looking at the offensive side of the ball. And there's some people that would come on here and say you need to strip down everything, right? Reed on Off the Bench was talking about the Joe Burrow trade rumors, right? And to Reed's credit, right, he didn't go on here and say that Cincinnati Bengals should trade Joe Burrow. He said that in the past. Maybe we'll give him the pass for that. But it just that there will be noise. And he's right. There will be noise about it because, if you're on a team like the Cincinnati Bengals and you look at their schedule and you could sit there and say, oh, they could win any of these games, but would it surprise you if they didn't win a single game the rest of the way? No, it wouldn't. I said it Off the Bench. There is a 0% chance the Bengals trade Joe Burrow this offseason. 0, right? And there's not many guarantees in life. That's one of them. Bengals aren't trading Joe Burrow. But there will be noise, right? There will be noise, especially if when they talk to Joe at the end of the year, if he kind of, isn't fully committed to saying, I'm going to be here, we're going to get this fixed. They picked me number 1. I've got a job to do. We haven't done the job. We're staying here and we're getting it done. If he doesn't come out and say that, there will be people that continue to speculate. We're not going to do that here. Maybe we'll talk about it. Bengals aren't moving Joe Burrow. So offensively, I don't think there's anything to move off of. We'll talk about the offensive line in a second. But let's start with the defensive side of the football. You cannot trade Trey Hendrickson. You can't do it, right? You take your comp pick, whatever that is. We've talked about it a little bit at the show. I'm going to be honest, I don't know exactly when you're getting your comp pick for Trey Hendrickson, but do not tag him. Do not do that again, right? Because I think Trey Hendrickson's mindset, if he were to be tagged, would be a little bit different this time around, right? Because then he looks at it and goes, well, I got $30 million this year. What's the tag? 35? That's like a 2-year, $65 million. Basically, he gets the contract that he'd been moaning about for so long, and it would just be, with the tag, right? So, that's what happens when you tag a player again. The number just keeps going up, especially at that edge rusher position. And let's be very clear here defensively. The Bengals are not just, they've had Trey Hendrickson. I understand he's been hurt, but it's not like, we add Trey Hendrickson to this defense and they'll be fine. Like, no, absolutely not. Right? There's one guy that maybe is a build-around type of guy, DJ Turner, but beyond that, that is it, right? There's no they've got, a stable, group of guys that we can trust, and let's just keep this pass rusher around for another year, and that'll put us in a chance where we can win a world championship. You're not close enough on the defensive side of the ball. So that's thing number 1. Right? And we've had people here. Craig Salem believes that they're probably going to do it. Look, it wouldn't shock me if they did, but I just want to be clear. That would be a tremendous mistake if they tag Trey Hendrickson here this offseason. And I think another question that you need to have here is, what do you do with DJ Turner? And by that, I mean, do you extend him this offseason? I think that's something that the Cincinnati Bengals need to consider. Am I all in on DJ Turner? No. I'm not, but I'm more all in on him than any other guy on the defensive side on this roster here at this point. And if he balls out next year and you don't give him an extension, now it's going to be more expensive. And the Bengals already made that same mistake with Jamar Chase. They've made that mistake really countless times before, but I think it would probably be a good idea for Cincinnati to try to get out in front of this and say, you know what? We're going to pay DJ Turner. We're going to extend him this offseason, and that's going to be our guy that we build around on the defensive side of the ball. It's a great point that Paul made in his article for The Athletic. I think Cincinnati needs to consider doing that. Again, I'm not all in on DJ Turner. He needs to show a little bit more consistency. But you've got to be all in on somebody, right? There has to be somebody on this team, on this defense, that you can sit there and say, all right, we can count on him at least to some degree going forward. I think it would be financially a smart, wise decision for Cincinnati to try to get out ahead of this with DJ and say, you know what, we're going to give him an extension this offseason. That would be a move. That's a very straightforward move to make, and I think it would be the right move for Cincinnati. I think there's definitely some risk to it, obviously. It's a guy that's been benched a couple of times, right? Got beat out for the starting job. A guy in Dax Hill, remember, a couple off seasons ago in training camp, he was moving from safety to corner, and he said, you know what, I'll move over to corner. I'll beat you out, DJ. His former Michigan teammate. That's what he did. But DJ has played really, really well this year, and he showed signs last year, especially leading up to that clavicle injury against the Chargers on Sunday Night Football, of him, playing good football. So that's one thing I would do. I would extend him here at this point. And then you talk about free agency. And, I think it's interesting because, one thing I've always said, I've said it for a long time, and anybody that knows football knows this, you can't build a team, or even a full defense through free agency. You can't do it. It has to be drafting and development. Now, there can be some patchwork solutions, right, for Cincinnati. And they hit on it as early as 2021. They went to the Super Bowl, and you think about the free agents there on that team. Mike Hilton, what a great person to bring in free agency. He was awesome. for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was exactly what they needed. Did he make some mistakes, especially at the end? Did he look a little old, a little washed, couldn't exactly run with the receivers anymore? I understand that. But Mike Hilton's tenure in Cincinnati, it was awesome. And that was a big reason why you were able to go to the Super Bowl. And Von Bell, right? Von Bell was awesome. Von Bell was just awesome, right? And he was, even there before, right? Obviously, he was there for some dark days there as well for Cincinnati. But what a presence he was in the Super Bowl. Larry Ogunjobi. Say what you want about him, but he came in and he filled a need the short time he was here in Cincinnati. That's exactly what he did. So if you hit the right guys in free agency, you can provide some stability. Now, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you add during free agency, it's not like, well, they're going to be here for 3-4 years. No, you're kind of like, well, they're going to be here for about a year, and then you're hoping that the younger guys can, be better off going forward. But again, I've said it a million times here on this show. You don't need a top 10 defense with this team. You need a defense that is average. We watched this defense this year, historically, hilariously bad, and you go, if you could have just somehow, some way beaten the Jets or beaten the Bears, both games you kind of had won, right? Somehow, some way win one of those games, you're borderline in the driver's seat to win this division with the worst defense that we've ever seen, right? So it's not like you need some top 10 defense. You just need some competence, just some level of competence. And I think this is one of the rare cases where free agency is like, it can put you in a spot defensively where you can go out there and be fine for a year. Again, not going to be top 10. Might not even be top 15. You can make the argument that that doesn't need to happen. You just got to be around that 20 range, man. Around the 20 range. Just can possibly get off the field on third down. Can possibly get a stop. And I think that is what I would do this offseason is try to get a guy at every level of the defense. Defensive line, I understand you've swung and missed. A lot of you've tried, right? TJ Slayton, what have you done? Certainly haven't picked up the slack from DJ Reader a couple of years ago, right? I would add there. I would add a linebacker, right? And I would add somewhere on the back end there as well in free agency. And maybe you toss around a lot of money at one of those positions. Maybe you do. Every draft pick that you have, I would put towards defense, right? Now, I've been very clear. I think there should be a different guy making those picks, not named Duke Tobin. But I think every single position, you go with defense. And there are some people that say, you're crazy. You need to go get a tackle. If the Bengals take a tackle in the first round, it's just not – it's not the right call. It's not the right call. And I understand this offensive line. I understand Joe Burrow's taking too many hits. I understand that you have nothing if you don't have Joe Burrow and if he's not out there, if he's not protected. I understand. But you cannot afford to not get a productive defensive player early on. If you know what you're doing, which the Bengals clearly don't, there is a guy that you will be able to take, regardless of where you pick in the first round, that can be an NFL player. There will be a guy available. It's just about picking the right guy. And Cincinnati for a long time now has not. So that's kind of where I'm at here with this offensive line. I look at what they've done, and we've brought this up on the show. Remember the beginning of the year, it was, the defense, they actually are better than last year, right? Remember the first 2 weeks against Cleveland and Jacksonville? We're like, yeah, we don't trust this defense. We don't think they're really good, but we think they're better than they are last year. The bigger concern here is the offensive line, right? Now, that obviously is a shift as the defense has just completely blown up and seemingly somehow gotten worse each and every week, and the offensive line hasn't really gotten a lot of flack here at this moment. Do I feel great about running it out there in 2026 with OBJ, Dylan Fairchild, Ted Karras, Jalen Rivers, and Amarius Mims? No, I don't feel great about it. But if they can continue to, one, stay healthy and put together a solid stretch here the rest of the way with Joe Flacco, hopefully, or maybe Joe Burrow there as well, then I think you have to sit there and say, you know what? We'll roll with them in 26, which a couple weeks into the season, I would say you're absolutely crazy if you're suggesting that. But again, I don't think there is not a stone that can be left unturned. You have to do everything you can to put new resources and new players on the defensive side of the football. And if the offensive line continues to hang in there, which they're hanging in there right now, is it great? You look at the PFF grades. I don't know how much I think it can tell you a lot, but it doesn't tell you the full story, right, as it relates to these PFF grades. Some of the guys aren't grading out well, but, Flacco, you put a quarterback back out there that can make quick decisions and get the ball out of his hands, he's staying on his feet for the most part. Now, obviously, one of the few times he got hit bad, and he hurt his shoulder. I understand that. But, where I'm at right now, again, we'll reevaluate this at the end of the year, but I'm in a spot right now, if I'm the Bengals, where it's like, well, you know what? Might roll those same 5 guys out there next year and see if they can get a little bit better. You have your questions if Karras can, he started out so bad. Now he's kind of hanging in there. Can you trust him as the center next year? I understand there's questions. Orlando Brown Jr., nobody's been harder on that guy than me. I get it. But, again, all the money that you have, and we know the Bengals aren't going to spend all the money that they have, but all of that needs to go to the defensive side of the football. And all your capital needs to go to the defensive side of the football, right? It's not an offense that needs any tweaks, really, at all, which is crazy that you're sitting here at 3-6 and it's like, yeah, wait, offense is fine. Don't really need to get better there. So that's another decision that needs to be made. And, again, I don't feel great saying that, but I think from an offensive line perspective, they've been good enough in recent weeks. And it's not the craziest thing in the world that you run it back with those same 5 guys. The Orlando Brown Jr. one is kind of the one that makes me a little bit sick, to be honest with you. But you're paying him. He's under contract. What else? We talked about, needing free agents at all levels of your defense, allocating all your resources to the defensive side of the ball, not tagging Trey Hendrickson right. And Paul mentioned this in his piece. There's several guys where it's like, all right, these guys aren't getting an opportunity. What's going on? Tyson Anderson, right? We said it last year. We've said it again this year. Clearly, Tyson Anderson does not have the trust of the staff at the safety position. He's been great on special teams for a long time, but he can't even get an opportunity out there at safety. And they're just still sticking with Geno Stone, who is hot garbage, right? So I don't know. I don't think it could be any worse at the safety spot. But the coaches, for whatever reason, I guess they think it could be. But you continue to roll Geno Stone out there, even after the restructured deal. It's just like, it can't be any worse. Like, you can't tell me that if you put Tyson Anderson, it would be worse than this. It's historically bad. Like, what's he going to do? Give up points on every drive? Well, that's what you're doing already, right? So we talked about that even last year as well when he couldn't get on the field. I don't know. It's a head scratcher to me, but clearly the coaches have no trust in him as a safety. Dejon Anthony, your 7th-round pick a couple of years ago. He's been on IR, but apparently he could ramp it up and be available here soon. He had opportunities at the beginning of the year. He didn't handle them correctly, is what Paul reports. And, he was a 7th-round pick. You move on. That's one of those guys where it's like, well, it's not the end of the world to move off. It's a 7th-round pick. How often is a 7th-round pick going to hit? Not very often, but obviously rarely ever for Cincinnati. But, Dejon Anthony was a 7th-round pick. He can't help this defense. He simply can't. That's just kind of the reality here. Cedric Johnson's a guy that's, he took him in the 6th round a couple of years ago from Ole Miss. And I've been like, yes, let's get him out there a little bit more. And you've seen him out there a little bit more there as well. I think that will continue to ramp up. I'm holding on to hope that he could still be kind of a diamond in the rough type guy. You took him in the 6th round. I think he's got more speed than anybody along, your defensive front. Shamar Stewart technically should have a little bit more, but it doesn't appear that he does. So I think the speed element there from Cedric Johnson is something to keep an eye on. You have to play him more, right? And from when he's out there, he's been solid in the few snaps that he's gotten. I would like to see him a lot against Pittsburgh on Sunday. And then you have your 2 third-rounders, McKinley Jackson and Jermaine Burton. Apparently, the off-the-field stuff is still bad, and they don't trust him at all. Complete swing and a miss for him. At the end of the day, it's like, where you're going to try to put him out there and let him go, but then it's like, well, your offense is fine. It's not an issue. You don't need him, right? So, yeah, it stinks that you wasted a 3rd-round pick on him, but it's like, even if he goes out there, how much better is your offense really going to get, right? And there's the questions, obviously, with Yoshi. He responded in a big way last week against Chicago, but, it's not really worth it to put him out there, especially after Chuck just ran back a kick for a touchdown. It's going to be hard to take him out of that spot, despite the fact that the whole year up to that point, he was just kind of running out to the 25 and getting walloped. But now he's got another return for a touchdown, so it's like, well, you got to keep him out there. That was really kind of the only role that you had there for Burton. And, your offense is unstoppable right now. So it's like, why switch it up? Especially if, you don't trust him as a staff. And lastly, McKinley Jackson apparently is not detail-oriented enough, and they don't like his attitude. And, he's not executing at a high enough level in practice. And he can't even get out there on the football field. And he's not athletic, right? I mean, he's a nose. Those guys aren't really super athletic anyway. But, again, it's kind of one of those spots. For me, I look at it like, throw him out there. Can it be worse? Kind of like at the safety spot with Geno Stone, right? Let's throw McKinley Jackson out there and see what he can do. Shoot, you took him in the 3rd round, and he plays a position of need. At least see what he can do. But it doesn't seem like the Bengals have any aspirations or wants when it comes to doing that. And lastly, the linebacker spot. You're in a tough spot here because it appears as though both guys can't play. You can't bail off them yet. Their attitudes are actually good, right? They're apparently good in the locker room, quality teammates there. Of course, talking about Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, but you have to bring in a veteran guy, right? And obviously you just traded away a veteran guy there as well. But, regardless of all the changes you make, if you make any this season or this offseason defensively, you got to address that somehow, because you can't – we'll see how they do the rest of the way this year, but if you just sit there and say, oh, yeah, Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight, week 1, it doesn't look close at this point. It does not look close. They're easily confused as well, and I get it. It's Ben Johnson. Nobody really confuses defenses better than him, but they were lost in that game, completely lost, and they're going to continue to get exposed until they can prove to the rest of the league that they know where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. Because not only is it a lack of athleticism and lack of tackling ability, they're in the wrong spot there as well, and that just cannot happen in the National Football League, especially if both of them are doing it. It's one thing if it's like, well, this guy's in the right spot, but this guy's not. Like, maybe you can work with it. Both of these guys, they have no clue what's going on. So that to me is probably the trickiest thing that you got to do here at linebacker, because you just took him. Obviously, Demetrius Knight was a second-round pick, Carter a few rounds after that, but that situation at linebacker has to be more stable. It just has to be more stable, and I'm very curious to how they go about doing that. You bring in Oren Burks here, who won a Super Bowl last year with Philly, really just a special teamer, right, is what he is. He's just kind of a special teamer. And, I don't know what to do at the linebacker spot. To me, that's the toughest. You got to give them a little bit more time, I guess, right, because they're rookies, but they're just not good. They're not playing well right now. Maybe that can get fixed going forward. But I see not only lack of awareness when it comes to where they're supposed to be, but also a lack of athleticism. And that's not really something that you can fix, right? Maybe you can play a little bit faster if you get a little bit more confidence. But to me, I don't know if that's something that you could fix if you're the Bengals. But that's kind of how I would attack this offseason as things sit on November 10th. But this thing isn't over yet. And, again, first to admit, I wrote the Bengals off after the Bear game. And now you watch the game last night, Pittsburgh, they ain't good. Right? They lose that game to the Chargers. You're looking at the division. You're going, okay, how are things stacking up here? Baltimore, people were saying they were going to get hot. They have done that, right? And they've got a weak schedule coming up. They got the Jets, or they got the Browns, and then the Jets, and then the Bengals, right? So it feels like the Ravens are going to rattle off some wins here there as well. And obviously you have an opportunity to sweep Pittsburgh here on Sunday. So the division's getting a little bit tighter, and you win this game on Sunday, and all of a sudden you're right back in this thing, right? Regardless of, how bad your defense is, you're right back in this thing if you win Sunday. And by the way, you have 2 games against Baltimore. So, yeah, they're going to rattle off some wins, but if you beat them, here we go. So, we'll spend time talking about that a little bit more as we continue, but then you start to talk about Pittsburgh and kind of the Pittsburgh angle of this. Said it at the top of the show. Aaron Rodgers, I've been very clear about this here on my show. He first ballot Hall of Famer, all-time talent. You can say what you want about him off the field. Is he a little bit weird? Yes, and you could probably drop the little bit in there, right? Is he a bad teammate? It seems like he barks a little bit too much at his teammates, even after the game last night, where he was like, yeah, there's some throws that I missed. Like, no, you were out of the game because of you, Aaron, right? If you played like you had throughout the year to that point, you would have an opportunity to win that game. But you were consistently missing throws, not hanging in there in the pocket, which, shoot, if I was 41 years old and I had guys barreling down at my face and I was down a couple of scores, I wouldn't want to hang in there either. I don't blame you for that. But I would have liked to see a little bit more accountability. But again, that shouldn't surprise anybody when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. But I've always been an Aaron Rodgers fan as a football player, right? I always have been. And I think he throws probably the prettiest ball that I've ever seen. But kind of the whole thing about Pittsburgh, and I said, look, say what you want about Aaron Rodgers and he's old or whatever, he's going to come in here and stabilize the quarterback position. And he has done that up until last night for Pittsburgh, because they were losing some games, right? Maybe some games they shouldn't have lost, and it was like, well, Rodgers is the reason you're losing. Well, Rodgers was the number one reason they lost the game last night. And in fact, I would sit there and say, yeah, I understand they did bad things everywhere offensively in the game last night, but I would say Aaron Rodgers is the reason that they lost that game. And we'll see if he can bounce back or not. Obviously he torched the Bengals last time they played. We'll see how he does in that game. But, they were getting after him. The Los Angeles Chargers, and like I said, he wasn't wanting to hang in there. There's sometimes, as a quarterback, there's a reason why they get paid the big bucks. And it's all great when you have a great offensive line, you're not getting touched. But if you want to win Super Bowls, there are times where you got to hang in the pocket. You got to hold on to the football for a split second longer. You got to deliver it, and you're going to take a shot, right? And, there were times in the game last night where Aaron had no interest in doing that. And you saw it. And look, Tom Brady, he did such a good job of that. Obviously, he rarely got touched, but there were plenty of occasions, even in Tampa when they went to the Super Bowl, where he was like, you know what, I'm going to get popped here, but I got to deliver this football. That last year before he retired, he retired and then came back, but that last year, he had no interest in getting hit, right? And that's ultimately why he retired. Shoot, he might still be playing if he wasn't, if you didn't have to worry about getting hit. But obviously that wouldn't be football there at that point. But that was kind of, you saw it at times in New York last year where it's like, yep, Aaron's got no interest in getting hit here. And for the majority of the year to this point, you didn't really see that, but he had no interest in taking shots in that game. And just you look at how that team is constructed for Pittsburgh. And Mike Tomlin's been getting a lot of flack, obviously, because they can't win a playoff game these days. But Omar Khan, that defense or that team is not structured very well. Again, they're just paying too much on the defensive side of the football, which if you're going to pay that much on your defense, it better be stout. It better be elite. And the Steelers defense has gotten better over the recent weeks against Indianapolis, I guess in some capacity, the game last night against L.A., but not good enough. I mean, it ain't Denver, right? It ain't Seattle. It ain't Houston, right, defensively. So I've got my question marks there. And then you look at the other pieces offensively where it's like, yeah, they're paying DK Metcalf a ton of money, which, by the way, genius again from John Schneider in Seattle, moving off him. And DK, yeah, he's a down-the-field threat, and he can be really, really good. He's a physical beast, obviously. But they got him and then like 5 tight ends and then Roman Wilson. I mean, that guy's going to be a salesman in 3 or 4 years. He stinks. And Calvin Austin, okay. So, I mean, you don't really have a ton of pieces there offensively, right? And then on top of that, you're relying on a 41-year quarterback. So I just think structurally Pittsburgh whiffed. Omar Khan should be on a hotter seat than what it seems like he's on right now. But Pittsburgh's got problems. And, we said Rodgers was going to stabilize them at quarterback. They were going to win some games, but they weren't going to go on some tear here. And obviously they'd won a bunch in the beginning, and some people were talking about 11, 12 wins. That's ridiculous. They'll be lucky to get to 9 here at this point. They'll absolutely be lucky to get to 9 here at this point. And then you look at the Ravens where it's like, yeah, they're getting hot here. They're putting together some wins, but it's like they still have what? All those losses in the loss column for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's like, yeah, they got 5 losses right now. You slip up a couple of times, right, or you just get beat. Like, these things are going to happen. I think 9-8 is going to win this division, to be honest with you. I think 9-8 is going to win this division. Now, if you're the Bengals, right? Can you go 6-2 the rest of the way? Probably not, right? But and then you're really going to be kicking yourself for the Jets and Bear game at the end of the year. But Pittsburgh, they got all types of issues. And they have some big wins this year. Obviously, they just had one against the Colts, and they had another one early in the year there as well. But they're going to hang around. They're going to win some games. But I see 9 wins with this team. I see 9 wins with this team. We'll see if Baltimore or Cincinnati could perhaps match that. All right, MVP race. I said this at the top of the show. I think there are 4 guys that have kind of separated themselves from the pack. And I don't have Mahomes or Josh Allen in this category. Here at this point. If they get hot and they start lighting up the stat sheet, they can enter the conversation. But I think the favorite for MVP, and he's tied for the odds-on favorite right now, but the favorite in my eyes is Matthew Stafford. That guy's playing unbelievable football. What is he, 37, 38 years of age? He looks like he could play another 5 years at an elite level. Now, obviously, Brady was kind of joking with him after the game about continuing to play. Well, the reason why Brady was able to play so long is because he didn't get hit. Right? Matthew Stafford, you think about all those years in Detroit where he was just getting smacked every single week. So his body's probably not going to be able to hold up there as long. But when you hit a certain point in your career as an NFL quarterback, and it's where all quarterbacks aspire to be, where you hope your body can still hang in there. When you sit there and you're catching the snap and you go, there's nothing that the defense can do that is going to surprise me or catch me off guard. I am at an advantage over the defense every single time the ball is snapped. And Matthew Stafford is in that spot. And he's probably been there for a few years now, honestly. And that's like a guy like Joe Burrow, right? If he can stay healthy and play deep into his 30s, he's going to be this guy there as well. And there's nothing that you can do that can confuse him. And when you pair it with a howitzer of an arm, that Matthew Stafford has, you're going to get a really, really good football player. And if the season ended right now, I would vote for Matthew Stafford to win the MVP. I get San Francisco's depleted, right? They were going on kind of a miracle run with all the injuries that they had dealt with, and Shanahan and Mac Jones were still finding ways to win games. Mac, by the way, played well again for the Niners. But at some point, especially when you're going up against a guy like Stafford, an offense like McVay, Devontae looked like he's turned back the clocks a little bit there as well. Like, you're going to get routed, and that's kind of what happened in the game for LA. But Stafford, to me, tremendous, right? And again, there's a lot of us here in this city that we don't necessarily like him for what transpired in 2021. That's fine. I'm not going to say I've gotten over it, but I've there's not as much deep negative feelings towards Matthew Stafford now than what I had several years ago. But Matthew Stafford's playing at a high level, incredibly high level. They're running the ball, too, with Kyron, Puka, Devontae, right? I mean, we think it's T and Jamar as that one duo, but Puka and Devontae, man, they're right there defensively. I mean, the Rams are a serious, serious problem. And, Matthew Stafford would get my vote for MVP here at this point. The guy he is tied with is Drake May. Yep, we tried to say this was coming, right? Had him at number 1 in our power rankings last week. Oh, but the Patriots, they only beat up on bad teams. Tampa, they're going to win that division, right? And they dominated that game. I understand Tampa had a chance to win it. Drake May made a horrible mistake throwing a pick in the end zone. Can't happen. That's just a young player making a dumb mistake. He can't do things like that. And, look, he didn't play great in the game, right? I think he only completed like 50% of his passes, had that turnover, right? He didn't run for a ton of yards. We were used to kind of seeing him run for like 50 yards a game. He didn't necessarily do that, but he showed a lot of toughness, a lot of grit in that football game. And, he's got an incredible record. In my opinion, best team in the AFC here right now, and he finds himself at the top of the MVP odds, and rightfully so. We'll see how, he obviously has to play Josh Allen again. There'll be some games as this thing gets a little bit deeper into the year. Weather's, continues to get colder, particularly up there in Foxborough. We'll see what he can do. But Drake May's the real deal. He's the real deal, and I absolutely love Mike Vrabel. Said this on Off the Bench, how that guy was available. Right? Tennessee let him go. What in the world are you doing if you're the Tennessee Titans? That guy is awesome from a leadership perspective. With the young guys. He had kind of more of a veteran team in Tennessee. Now you got this really young team in New England, and he's just kind of guiding them along, doing a tremendous job. Mike Vrabel is absolutely awesome. And then McDaniels, say what you want. He can't be a head coach in this league. Some people are just meant to be offensive coordinators and play callers. And that's what Josh McDaniels is. And Dan Orlovsky tweeted it out yesterday. It's like a lot of elements of this reminds you of Brady. I'm not going to sit here and say Drake May is the next Tom Brady. A lot of elements offensively to what they're doing reminds you of the Brady days. Obviously, you have a quarterback that's a lot bit more mobile, and that's certainly different. But it's like, there's not a lot of negative plays here. There's a lot of first downs, right? Taking care of the football for the most part when they're not making bad decisions, running the ball well, right? Travion Henderson, how about that? He finally popped off. Gave him, he was toting the rock in that game and ultimately ended up basically winning the game and sealing the game for the New England Patriots. So they're very versatile. They can run it. They can throw it. They can defend. Good special teams. They're coached well. Up-and-coming quarterback, and he absolutely deserves this love. We said this a couple weeks in. Keep an eye on Drake May being a dark horse MVP guy. You can remove the dark horse from that sentence here at this point. He's an MVP guy, and we'll see. Again, I'd tip my hat here to Stafford at this point. There's a long way to go here in this thing, but I think Stafford and Drake May are kind of at the top of that list. And next is Jonathan Taylor at that running back spot for Indianapolis. What Jonathan Taylor has done is absolutely tremendous. If you got up and watched the Berlin game, he was unbelievable. Was it 240-plus yards rushing, another 40 yards through the air. Kind of in a lot of ways remind you of what Saquon did last year, and obviously Saquon had that year and wasn't able to win MVP. So unfortunately for him, he's probably not going to be able to win the award. But you think about that game with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm sitting there watching that game going, that looks like the Daniel Jones I'm used to. And you look at the stats, and they're not that bad. But Daniel Jones made some old-time Daniel Jones mistakes and decisions in that game, and he got bailed out by what was an incredible run game. An incredible job by Jonathan Taylor. So that's very much the core of what they want to do, Indianapolis. They want to line up. They want to block. They want to run the football. That's very much their identity. And they were able to do that against the Falcons team. And, we sit here and laugh at the Falcons, but that's a solid defense. What they've done defensively, picks through the draft, by the way, Bengals could use James Pierce Jr., right? He was available. You could have taken him. But obviously, the Falcons have done a really nice job there defensively, and Colts didn't have any issues. Ran right through him with Jonathan Taylor, and he's kind of done that for him all year long. With a running back, you question how long can you do it, right? Because remember, Jonathan Taylor I don't remember what that year that was a couple years ago, where he kind of did this, went crazy, and then you go down a little bit. You're not as good for the next year or so, right? As a running back, just kind of the nature of the position. You're seeing it in Philly right now with Saquon. He had this all-world year last year, and now it's not sustainable to do it back-to-back years. But what Taylor's doing right now, he's having one of those all-time running back type years, and he deserves MVP love there as well. And the final guy that I will put on this list is Sam Darnold. And I understand he didn't light up the stat sheet this past week. I didn't watch that game very closely. I went back and watched some parts of it, but you hang 40-plus points, and I'm thinking, Sam Darnold probably racked up the fantasy points for me, and he had like 7. Right, so that their defense scored 2 touchdowns. That defense is outstanding, and they were just basically running it all game with Walker and Charbonnet, and just kind of bleeding clock. Really, I mean, they just dominated that game start to finish. And Jacoby made some mistakes early for Arizona, and the Seattle just stepped on him immediately. But what Sam Darnold's done, tremendous, pushing the ball down the field, taking care of the football. He looks like a top 10 guy in the National Football League, and I think he's playing like probably a top 5 guy, as crazy as that is to say out loud. And if you're Minnesota, you're kicking yourself because you swung and missed on that. You should have kept Sam Darnold around in Indianapolis. Instead, you went with J.J. McCarthy. How's that working out? That guy absolutely stinks. Let's be very direct when it comes to that. But he's kind of that next guy in the MVP conversation for me, Sam Darnold. What we got here? We got about 10, 12 minutes. Appreciate everybody stopping by, hanging out with us here at this point. Reed Mouse says in the chat, Lakota East baseball is going to be great this year. Obviously, his brother's now calling the shots over there. I am a proud Lakota East baseball alum. And, hopefully they can put together a good season. Won a playoff game in football. That's obviously positive. Played St. X. Unfortunately, just kind of outmatched in that game. But, Baden, by the way, the Baden Rams are still chugging along. We'll have a show, by the way, at Shooters. We do every Monday with Coach Nick Yorty, so looking forward to that. That will be on Watch Cbox.com later today, this evening. Let's do some CFB whip around here to end today's show. Some good college football games. We kind of had a good feel for all of them. Texas Tech dominated that game against BYU. BYU, what they did was kind of a fairy tale type of run, but you had to give them credit, right? They kept coming back late in these games, fourth quarter, coming up with some big victories, and they deserve a lot of credit for doing that, right? When you're talking about BYU, but that's just not a recipe that you can rely on, right, as a football team. You can't sit there and go, we're just going to show up late in the game and, score a bunch of points and storm back and win. You face a team like Joey McGuire, Texas Tech, what they've done in the portal, sensational. Bailey off the edge, Rodriguez would win the Buckus Award if Arvell Reese didn't exist. So they've got some really good pieces there defensively. And, Baron Morton, if he stays healthy, protects the football, he's going to be able to score enough points. But they did a nice job flipping the field position on him. They were defending. They were running the ball, even if it started out a little bit slow for the Red Raiders. Had the home field advantage there in Lubbock. We've said all year that Texas Tech's the best team in the Big 12. They're a playoff team, right? Pretty clearly to me. They did have the loss on the road against Arizona State, kind of a fluky situation, had their backup quarterback playing in the game. So Texas Tech kind of head and shoulders above everyone else in the Big 12, in my opinion. Utah's a good team. UC obviously struggled mightily with Utah. Texas Tech blew the doors off of Utah there as well. So, I think, this makes this game for UC in a couple of weeks even bigger. When BYU comes to town, that's going to be absolutely awesome because now you have BYU kind of trying to fight there and keep their season alive as far as postseason aspirations go. And that's going to be a great game. But I think UC can beat BYU. We said the committee had them ranked too high. They had them at 7 and Tech 8. They had that wrong, right? That needed to be flipped. And you saw that in the game there as Texas Tech rolled, no problem. And Bachmeier, they deserve a lot of credit for what they've done. And, next year for BYU, maybe they can be that team that, wins the Big 12 potentially. And obviously, they still have a lot in front of them. And who knows? They could surprise us and go on a run. But I think just Texas Tech showed why they're the class of the Big 12 there in that game. Indiana, Penn State. Our one best bet of the weekend that did not hit. I thought Indiana was going to be able to smack them. Look, I understand it was not in Bloomington. I understand it was in Happy Valley, right, in Penn State for that game. I understand that Penn State still has some NFL bodies on that team, right? And, Ohio State, I'm hesitant to say the word struggled, but it was close in the first half. And Ohio State obviously pulled away in the second half. And, Indiana, their whole thing all year was that, they didn't just beat teams, they beat the crud out of teams. And I thought that was going to continue in the game. But, I said all year that Mendoza, what he's done, great. Deserves a lot of credit for it, but he is not on the same level as Julian Sayin. He is not on the same level as Ty Simpson. And to me, he showed that in the game. Did he make some unbelievable throws on that final drive? Yes. Was it incredibly gutsy that he did that on the road, staring adversity right in the face, and executed, especially after the massive negative play on the first play of the drive? Yes. I don't mean to come here and disrespect Fernando Mendoza for his performance at the end of that game. He deserves a lot of credit for it. But there's some people spinning the narrative of, oh, that was his Heisman moment. And Gus Johnson, who is tremendous at his job, he's losing it, right, when they have the big catch there at the end to win it, and he says, give him the Heisman. Well, what are you talking about? What do you give him the Heisman, right? He should have never been in that spot. Again, you're the number 2 team in the country against a Penn State team who doesn't have their coach and doesn't have their quarterback, right? It's not a Heisman moment to come down and barely win the game because your receiver, by the way, makes an out-of-the-world catch. Credit to Mendoza, he gave him an opportunity, but that's all the catch there, not the throw. It's one of the best catches we'll see this year in college football. So, look, Mendoza, he deserves to be in New York for the Heisman. And again, if he runs the table here and beats Ohio State in the title game, then sure, give it to him. But here at this point, I think there is a significant level in between Simpson and Sayin and Fernando Mendoza. And some people spin it like, oh, that's his Heisman moment. That's why he should win the Heisman. I look at it and go, that's why he shouldn't win the Heisman. Why are you in a situation where it's that close? And if you go back and watch the first half, he was missing throws. Even in the third quarter, was missing throws. Credit to him. He was best when he, at the end of the game, where he needed to be. But I don't get that, with Mendoza. And I was, again, love Gus Johnson, but that was probably one of the worst calls of his career. Like, what do you give him the Heisman? What are you talking about? One, it's, November 8th when that happens, and he comes back and beats a Penn State team that's won a handful of games, that lost to Northwestern and UCLA, and doesn't have their quarterback and their coach got fired. Like, I didn't get that whatsoever. But credit to Mendoza. It was a great drive. Cignetti after the game was, obviously he was proud of his team, but that was by far the worst Indiana has looked all year. When you play that bad and you get a win, that can say a lot about a team, right? I understand that. But, there was a reason we had Alabama at 2 and Indiana at 3. And, you kind of saw that over the weekend there. As I don't think at this point you can say Indiana's the second best team in the country. But obviously we're all hoping them and Ohio State can run the table and battle it out in Indianapolis for the Big Ten. But, I think that's a knock on Indiana more than an incredible come-from-behind win, which great drive, but, shouldn't have been in that spot. What else? Alabama won again 20-9. And, Simpson the past 2 games – obviously had the bye last week for Alabama. There's probably been his 2, apart from the Florida State game, which, by the way, I didn't think he was that bad. I said that after the Florida State game. Oh, by the way, Alabama has a quarterback, despite the fact that they lost that game and got smacked in that game. But I think, he wasn't bad against LSU, and he wasn't bad against South Carolina. Obviously, he was perfect against South Carolina in the fourth quarter. But he missed some throws early. But my takeaway from this game with Alabama is that I think even more highly of Alabama after this game than I did going in. I understand you only scored 20 points, but my concern with Alabama is defensively. And the turnover that Kane Womack has done on the defensive side, and I'll be honest, I did not think he was the right man for the job. I thought he should be on the hot seat. I thought they should make a move there at that spot. I was all the way out on Kane Womack. And what he's been able to do navigating through some injuries there as well. I mean, that's a banged-up unit for Alabama. And this guy, Yanze Pierre, at that linebacker position, talking about best linebackers in the country, Arvell Reese, Jacob Rodriguez, you got to put Yanze Pierre into this conversation there as well. And when Quay Russaw broke his foot early in the year, we all kind of sat there and said, what's Alabama going to do at that linebacker spot? Then you bring in this Yanze Pierre kid. He's unbelievable. He's literally unbelievable. Then you have some injuries along your defensive line. Now you got to start a true freshman in London Simmons. How's he? He's unbelievable. And we talked about the guys on the back end of their defense, struggling with run fits. They gave up a ton of big runs early in the year. Past couple games, where's that been? They've solved that problem there as well. They've got guys on the outside that can cover. So the turnaround for the Alabama defense has been incredible to me. Obviously, they haven't been able to run the football. They weren't able to run it against LSU. That's a concern. If you want to win the national title, you got to have some semblance of a run game. And there were some misses from Ty Simpson, all throughout that game, to be completely honest with you. But the thing about Alabama that makes them dangerous, and we talked about this with Ohio State there as well, they can get 50 yards at the snap of their fingers, right? Oh, you need 50 yards right here? Boom! You can go get 50 yards with Ty Simpson slinging it down the field, whether it be, Ryan Williams or Jeremy Bernard or the freshman Latier Brooks. They've got guys that can go get 50 yards for you immediately, and that's why they'll always be in the game, and that's why they'll always have a chance, and that's why they'll always be a threat. That was, you only scored 20 points, like, okay, but I actually left that game with more confidence in Alabama just because of the tremendous defense that they were able to play and just the fact that they were able to get those big plays whenever they want them, right? You need some more consistency. They missed on a lot, right? They got a tough one immediately this week, Oklahoma. They're the better team. Alabama, of course, the better team. I don't know what the spread is, like 7 points, probably something around that. Got to show up ready to go. Got to be better against Oklahoma if they want to keep this run going. But I was impressed with Alabama in that game. Real quickly on the LSU side, hand up accountability. They were my pick to win the national title. That might be they're calling that the worst pick of all time, I think some people. I thought Nuss was going to have a good year. I thought he was going to turn himself into a first-round guy. That's not happening. He got benched in the game, and they got an interim guy, Frank Wilson, obviously. Brian Kelly fired. But he was 18 of 21 and then got benched. They'd struggled in the red zone. They hadn't scored a ton of points, so I sort of get it. But I don't think I've ever seen in my life a quarterback go 18 for 21 and then get benched. And they put the kid in. They were trying to, Wilson said after the game, trying to catch Alabama off guard a little bit with more of a running threat. But that was a mistake. Horrible decision there by LSU. So, I kind of feel for Nuss a little bit. 18 to 21, they get benched, right? And this is your final year, and you're playing your rival, Alabama. And the game was, Alabama felt like they had controlled the game, but the game was still very much in reach for LSU, and they made that switch. So that was just a head-scratching decision there for me. But LSU, obviously, in shambles. They got a lot of work to do, and obviously their priority is who the heck they're going to bring in to be the next head coach, and ultimately we'll see who that is. And finally, Ohio State. They don't play anybody good. We know this. On the road at West Lafayette. On the road at Purdue. Half the stadium is scarlet, right? But Julian's saying it. He's unbelievable. That pick was bad, right? Kind of reminded you of the Drake May, or it happened before, but kind of looking back on it, reminds you of the Drake May pick on Sunday against the Buccaneers. But that's like the one mistake he's made. That throw to Jeremiah Smith, I don't remember if it was the first or second touchdown, just down the seam, just right over two defenders, just on a line, and Smith literally turned around and went like this, and the ball was there. One of the best throws I've seen all year. Sayan's tremendous. People don't give him credit for his athletic ability. This guy was a dual threat guy coming out of high school. He can move around the pocket. He can move outside the pocket. He can throw on the run. He's got the best skill guys, obviously, in the country. Ohio State's the real deal. We said this last week. People sitting there saying, A&M, Indiana could be ranked higher. Just stop it. Just stop it right now. I understand Ohio State hasn't played anybody, and obviously they'll get tested against Michigan, theoretically, and we'll go from there. But I don't see how you can watch college football and say they're not the best team in the country, despite the fact that they haven't played much of a schedule. A&M, big win for them on the road against Missouri. That was easy. Light work, no problem for them. Obviously, Bo Perbula, quarterback for Mizzou, he's out. They were with a true freshman. He didn't look very comfortable, which how could you expect them to look very comfortable there in that game? But A&M, they ran it when they wanted to. They defended well enough. They threw it with Marcel Reed. And, I think when I think Heisman, it's Sayan and Simpson. I think it's a two-horse race. Most people would say, or a lot of people would say Mendoza's in there as well. If Mendoza plays well against Ohio State in the title game and wins, fine. But, to me, it's either Sayan or Simpson. I would give the nod to Julian Sayan here at this moment. But Marcel Reed, as they continue to win, he deserves some love, especially if they run the table, right? And if he has a big game against, obviously they played Texas. Texas could beat Georgia this week. That Texas A&M game at the end of the year could be massive, right? And then if he goes plays Alabama in the championship game, wins that, then all of a sudden you're comparing his resume to Julian Sayan's resume, and you're going, Sayan hasn't played anybody, and maybe Marcel Reed could steal this thing. But A&M's real. I'll have a decision to make if I bump A&M over Indiana. I'll have to think about that one. Certainly going to have Alabama over them again. But, we'll see what I do there with A&M and Indiana. I'll have to sleep on that a little bit. But another great week in college football real quickly before we get out of here. Oregon. Oregon, I thought they were disrespected a little bit, put at 9. They had the two Big 12 teams. Tech and BYU put ranked over them. Bit of a head scratcher for me. Totally upset alert. Iowa was one of our best bets of the weekend. Basically had the game won, but Dante Moore in the elements, gets his team down the football field, manages the clock beautifully, kick a field goal. It's a game winner. So, kind of how I view Indiana a little bit lesser than I did, despite the fact they won. I certainly view Oregon a little bit higher than I did, even though it was ugly. But that's just kind of, you're at Kinnick Stadium, and those elements, it ain't going to look pretty. And they handled it well. And keep an eye on Oregon. That might be the spark they needed here to get hot. That's a good Iowa team. Obviously, they can't throw the football, but they're tough, physical, good defense, good special teams. And that's a big-time win for Dan Lanning on the road for the Ducks. And they should go up significantly in the college football playoff rankings. We will see tomorrow night. Appreciate everybody hanging out, as always, with us here at the show. We'll be here all week. Certainly looking forward to that. I got a couple of guests lined up, so be on the lookout for that. Maybe we'll talk Bearcat hoops tomorrow before the Dayton game. Would love to get somebody from UC on to talk about that. But appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out. And, of course, if you missed any parts of the show, that's fine. Podcast will be up later this afternoon. Also, clips on YouTube there as well. Appreciate everyone, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. But until then, take care, everybody.